The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Happy Football Friday to you, my friend. Let's get it.
And it was an easy victory for the 49ers.
Bills Commanders, 1 o'clock Sunday live right here.
Buy or sell, the Eric Bieniemy effect.
Mike Danger.
I don't think it's going to be an easy task for Buffalo, but I think they have enough talent to get over. Bills win 24-21.
Gene Battaglia.
I think with Washington and Eric Bieniemy, they'll do some things on offense. Are we going to get good Josh, bad Josh, or somewhere in between? I don't think the Bills' offensive line all of a sudden solved everything. This is a big test against that team coming up.
Once I saw Tropical Cyclone, it got my attention.
Hey, what are they calling it? A tropical cyclone? I heard that was Gene's nickname in high school.
It was actually Mean Gene, but go on.
Oh, yeah. Mean Gene,
But
the tropical
yeah.
cyclone.
You guys enjoy it when fantasy experts pretend to be lawyers or doctors. You're really going to enjoy it when we pretend to be meteorologists.
I am Count Tesco.
Certainly the best weekend thus far of the college football season.
Oh, yeah, folks.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
And what a weekend we have in front of us. Appreciate you starting it with us here in the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app, YouTube, Twitch, at The Fan Rochester, even on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. I'm Mike Danger, and over there, that's Gene Battaglia.
You inspired me yesterday. You inspired me because if you go right now to YouTube or Twitch, I'm wearing a jersey you would never think of, but Danger comes in yesterday, and what do we call it? The bottom of the closet there?
It was something I found at the bottom of my dresser because yesterday we had our staff tailgate party, a little team building party, and you were encouraged to wear some gear, whatever your favorite gear was. And it's like, I'm not wearing a Bears jersey. I'm embarrassed as a fan. So I'm not going to wear my Peterman jersey. I'm not going to dig in and get my Hester or my Urlacher or my Forte. I'm not wearing a Bears jersey. I'm embarrassed by my favorite team.
Embarrassing!
So I found at the bottom of my dresser a Syracuse orange hoodie. I'm like, oh, I haven't worn this since the great yard cleanup of 2020. Let me throw this on and we'll be good. And that's what I wore yesterday. And you were like, what are you wearing that for? I've never seen you wear anything Syracuse.
Never once have I seen you wear Syracuse. And if you listen to the show, yeah, we like the Babers and we want the orange football program.
But we were pretty critical of Jim Boeheim.
For good reason. I think we were the one kind of called it like it was, and we're not waving pom-poms or anything. It's like, when you wear that, I'm like, what? Where did you get that? And why? And what you said made sense. Like, hey, I went to the Duke game, and I had to wear something, and I'm not cheering for Duke. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it checks out.
I'm accepting applications. If you want me to be a fan of your college sports team, I'll listen. You know, my brother-in-law, my niece, both Penn State guys, my niece is campaigning hard. Like, you know, Uncle Chris, you got to, you know, like, this is a hard thing for me to say no to. This is family. So Penn State is in the lead right now, but Syracuse wins in proximity.
I would invite you to St. John Fisher football for homecoming of the Courage Bowl next week, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. We got both those games on the Fan.
All right. So that was yesterday. Today, curveball.
Curveball. Well, I was inspired because I'm thinking, boy, I have a few things at the bottom of my closet, and boy, we've been through a move. We've been through some, kind of let's clean things out, spring cleaning. My wife's like, why don't you get rid of that? I'm like, I can't. It's sports. I like it. And somebody gave this to me as a gift a client years ago. Like, hey, do you want this? I'm like, sure. I'm wearing, I don't even know what to call it. It's a Cubs jersey.
It's a Cubs jersey.
But it's not even a Cubs jersey.
It's not authentic. It's an old school Cubs jersey. You could wear that to Wrigley, and you wouldn't get ridiculed for wearing that. That would work. That would fit. It's old. It's made. What's the brand on that? Majestic. I don't think Majestic makes jerseys anymore.
Is Majestic even in business?
It's a jersey that checks out. My problem with it is you get that jersey off before you jinx my choking team any more than they already. You mush. You master stroke that jersey on you, a Mets fan. You're taking them come down this path with your favorite team, and I can't have them choke any more than they already have. You can't beat the Pirates. If you can't beat the Pirates, then I'm sorry. Yes, you don't deserve to be a postseason team.
I'm happy to report that right now they're up on the Rockies 1-0. If you don't beat the Rockies this weekend, then you don't deserve to go anywhere. But over the course of the show, if somehow they fall behind the Rockies, dare I say they lose to the Rockies, then maybe you're on to something here. But it is something you don't see that much anymore, the finger quote replica jersey. Like when I go to a Wings game or when I'm down in the city, you know what drives me nuts? The person who is a Yankee fan that wears Derek Jeter, but across the nameplate it says Jeter. Yankees don't wear nameplates. Yeah. What are you doing? That's not real.
Well, what was the thing I said to you when it's like, turn around? Does it say baseball on the back of your jersey? No, there's nothing on the back. No number, nothing. It's just a replica. It's a fine replica. If I owned a Cubs jersey like that, I would wear it to Wrigley, and I wouldn't be ashamed. It's fine.
The Cubs are one of those teams, too, that I'm not violating any fan code by owning this. I hardly ever wear it, but no offense.
I wore a Dodgers jersey for my senior pictures. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Was that a fashion statement?
It was just a friend of mine collected jerseys. You know, imagine a guy like Duffy who's a sneakerhead and a jersey collector. I had a friend like that in high school, and he just collected jerseys, just loved jerseys. Like, Dodgers white, so sweet, such a sweet jersey. And it was a sweet jersey. I'm like, can I wear it for my senior pictures? He's like, yeah. Go ahead. So I wore his Dodgers jersey for my senior picture. One of the outfit changes there for the senior picture. You know how you do you got to do a formal one with a tie, and I was wearing the for the casual one. I wore a Dodgers jersey because it was a sweet jersey. I'm not a Dodgers fan, but the jersey looked sharp. That's a sharp looking Cubs jersey, Gino. I like the pinstripes. It looks good.
Yeah, the Cubs are a classic look. I don't like the City Connect Wrigleyville things. Those are silly.
Not a fan of that either.
Yeah.
Yep, but what you got on today, that's a good look. We're looking good. We're feeling good. It's a good weekend in front of us. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about the weekend in front of the Buffalo Bills as they get set to travel to Washington, and elements with each passing minute appear to be more and more in play for the Sunday afternoon kickoff.
Well, they were calling it a cyclone at one point. No. It's been upgraded to a tropical storm. So tropical storm, and you have to name everything.
Tropical depression, tropical storm. Tropical storm, pretty serious.
Tropical storm Ophelia.
Right now, is it a tropical storm?
Right now.
Okay.
Right now.
So by the time it gets to the mid-Atlantic coast, perhaps then it's a tropical depression? I mean, both of us just unbelievable meteorologists. We should actually get somebody on who knows.
It probably will be downgraded to that point, but Tropical Storm Ophelia is bearing down right now on North Carolina. It looks like Wilmington up a ways, not toward the south there by South Carolina. So by the time this gets up to the Delmarva region, and there's such a wide array of where this could actually hit, they're saying now 2 o'clock on Sunday. This is slowed down. Oh, and the Ravens are home this week, too.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Good.
Not good. For the Bills? This is not good.
No, it's an equalizer. It's not good. You can throw all bets out the window. You really don't know what you're going to get. I mean, we talked yesterday to Andy Behrens and talked some fantasy football and asked him, like, how does weather impact your decision on which players to sit or which players to start? And he's like, really, if it's anything but wind, it doesn't. You're going to still play your guys, and the wind can actually have a factor. Now, if we're talking a tropical storm or a tropical depression, I imagine why you're calling it that is there are some high winds involved in that storm.
Correct. Now, who has the stronger arm, that would be Josh Allen, but I remember the Patriot game. I remember the Ravens playoff game. You won one of those, you lost another, and even Josh Allen's arm wasn't good enough in those types of conditions. So I don't know what they're talking about as far as wind. Sustained winds for North Carolina, they're talking anywhere from 40 to 73 sustained, with gusts up to 110 miles an hour.
Right now?
Right now.
Right now. So that will come down as the storm weakens into Sunday, you would hope.
Well, even if it goes in half, gusts up to 60, yeah, that's not going to be good for the kicking game.
No.
Advantage me. I'm cutting my prediction in half. You went on the break room this morning. I'm going to say it's Buffalo's still an ugly game, 17-13. You don't cover now, you get the heck out of there. Weather changes things. Can this team win this sort of game? You would think they've been building to this point. They've lost games like this, Danger. They have. So you got to figure this out here.
Yeah, I don't think it's an easy outcome. I think the Bills do win. I don't have them covering. I predicted 24-21, and immediately Ryan from Let's Go Duffalo, the podcast in the Odyssey app, he's like, you think that the Washington can score 3 touchdowns on this Bills defense? Yeah, I do. I'm a little bit nervous about the wide receivers against our secondary, and the weather makes me a bit nervous as well. Can you run the football against the Buffalo Bills? Well, if they're as physical as what we saw week 1 with the Jets, then yeah, I think Robinson and Antonio Gibson can probably get some yards. If the Bills' defensive line plays the way they played last week, then maybe you're able to slow that down. I think it's going to be a tall order given the conditions, given that it's a road game, and given that Washington is 2-0 for a reason. Like, they've got some momentum right now, and I'm curious to see how far that momentum will carry them.
I get it. They're 2-0. You can't penalize them, but boy, oh boy, they had some people sweating against Arizona, who many would say that's the worst team in the league. And also, sure, it took a Hail Mary. That should have been going to overtime potentially. Should never gotten to that point. So, who's the better team? It's the Buffalo Bills, certainly. Now, there is an X factor here, Danger, and it's this. And maybe this actually, with the rain and everything helping out, like a fan base that has beaten down, an alumni group that has been totally disconnected until now. 175 Washington football alums will be on hand. And for that fan base that has just been kind of dumping tickets, I'm just wondering if this is a cocktail right now where this is actually going to be a hostile environment for once the Buffalo Bills are going to be going into.
I think you're still going to have a lot of Bills fans in attendance. The Bills have been traveling well through the course of the last few years, and knowing that Washington was a team that you could get tickets to pretty easily. I mean, my nephew, 10 years old, went to his first Washington football team game a couple of seasons ago, and they had great seats last minute, impromptu, spur of the moment. Let's go watch a primetime game between the Commanders and the Giants, and they went, and they had a blast, and they were able to get tickets at the last second. So I think that the Bills fans will travel. It will be a different environment than I think what we're used to, because I think Washington fans are waking up. I think there is a renewed optimism in the course and the direction of the franchise, which happens when you part ways with a scumbag like Daniel Snyder. Let's get to Craig Hoffman from the Team 980, our Odyssey Sports sister station in Washington, D.C. Craig's great whenever we want to talk about Washington football, and he'll be joining us later on this afternoon, right around 4:25. We'll try to get answers to some of these questions we have about Washington.
Yeah, it's he's right in the middle of it, and look, I'm not going to pretend to know what's going on with the weather. We're trying to figure this out. He's actually down there in it, so we'll talk to Craig about everything Commanders and what it's been like having a new owner down there. I remember it's not that long ago when we had certainly a different scenario. Like, you were hoping, okay, can we get rid of Daniel Snyder? Oh my gosh, he's gone. Maybe we can actually have something nice. You got to remember, the Bills are going through this drought thing and just irrelevant football. And there were vultures maybe taking the team to Toronto. We knew Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. They said they weren't, but my gosh, you knew what they were up to. And then when the Pujols came in, dude, it was a party. It was a party unlike any other in the tailgate, that week 2 game against Miami. Just a celebration. And oh my gosh, we have an owner that's going to keep the team here. Hallelujah. And what's it been like? Not that Washington was ever going to go anywhere. That part of the analogy doesn't hold up. But the idea that, hey, maybe you can actually go somewhere now and just be proud of this team, and maybe they can actually build something to be a winning team. So curious to get Craig's thoughts on what direction the Commanders, how long it's going to take for them to get there. And this story too, Danger, that they're looking at the old RFK site to have the stadium go. Wouldn't that be kind of fitting? Isn't that where, if you asked any average fan, that's where they would want it to go?
Yeah, I think the average fan only thinks of RFK when they think of Washington. That FedEx Field is like this blemish on the team's proud history. You build a stadium at RFK, and I think you've got a lot of happy Washington football fans. but I have a feeling that the way politics go in our nation's capital, that it won't be as easy as it sounds, and you'll probably have other factors at play as well. I'm sure Maryland would like to keep some of that Sunday revenue in their state.
Well, just fork over, build them a stadium.
Maybe Virginia would like it as well. It's funny how when you have somebody that you're willing to partner up with and do business with, deals get done. That wasn't happening with Daniel Snyder at the helm.
Somewhere nowhere, Virginia was the closest place.
Yeah.
We could have
Later this hour, you heard DA mention it this morning. This weekend is up to this date the best weekend in college football on the schedule that we've seen so far this season. And to help us break it all down, our superhero of the spread, Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros. He's joining us here in about 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, so we'll look at the lines here. Is this where kind of the glass slipper comes off for Colorado? This has been a spectacular run, but Oregon's actually ranked ahead, and that's not the only matchup. My goodness, you have Penn State, Iowa. You have Ohio State, Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish haven't beat the Buckeyes since 1936. Now, they don't play every year, certainly, but my gosh, it's been a long time. Yeah. So, a lot of these matchups, and I want to get Thor's thoughts on Syracuse. Now, we can't play this betting-wise in New York State. You can't bet on a New York college team, but are the Orange actually legit? If they are, they should cover comfortably against Army. We'll talk to Thor Nystrom coming up shortly.
We have time for your calls this afternoon. If you want to pull up a stool, feel free. The Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line is open at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub. The new location at 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com. We've got a round of shots coming up during happy hour after 5 o'clock. We've got some more headlines from around the NFL. A couple of rookie quarterbacks ailing and looking to miss time this weekend. We'll tell you what's going on with that, and some takes on tap coming up here in a couple few as well with I'll Drink to That. The table is set.
Yeah, and the Bills injury report on a Friday. The practice report is out, and okay, so they gave Tre'Davious White a Veterans Day arrest. Fine. Everyone else practiced fully today.
Love it.
Leonard Floyd, full. Dawson Knox, full. Dawson Knox, they held out 2 days because of the back thing and whatever that was. Full participant. So there's no excuses for the Buffalo Bills health-wise this week going down to D.C.
Sean McDermott on what exactly they're facing here in terms of an opposing quarterback who essentially is a rookie. Didn't really play in his rookie season. What are the Bills going to face in Sam Howell?
Right. Well, it's a credit to Ron and his staff and General Manager Marty Herney, and they do a great job. Together, they've worked together for a number of years, some of which was in Carolina, now in Washington. And, it's a credit to their scouting staff, their coaches as well, and to the young man that he's developed. And when you watch him, he had a successful career at North Carolina, and now he's off to a great start in just his second season with Washington.
There is Sean McDermott on a call earlier today.
All right, so for Sam Howell, what are we looking at here in terms of win or arm strength? Can I read you his scouting report from the draft at the Combine in 2022?
Okay.
The former Tar Heel has a cannon for an arm, recorded 59 miles an hour during the Combine, which led all passers.
Okay. Well, then the elements shouldn't really affect either quarterback. I would just say that the quarterback that is less decisive will be the quarterback that hurts his team more come Sunday. I'm saying Sam Howell, given that he still has a lack of experience against the Bills' pass rush, will be holding onto the football a little bit longer than he probably wants to, and that's going to lead to some problems for Washington's offense.
Yeah, in a game like this, though, what makes me nervous from a Buffalo standpoint is actually special teams. Like the fluky, oh my gosh, there it is, there's a turnover, there's the busted play. For everything that went wrong in that Jets opener, we didn't forget there was a terrible special teams play that actually lost them the game. Right. It was just, you were so angry and upset at Josh Allen, you kind of overlooked that should never happen in any game at any point. So are the Bills really all that buttoned up when it comes to the return game? Aha. All right. So you can't afford to let anything like that this week on the road.
All right, we'll get to more Bills and Commanders talk later on this afternoon. Craig Hoffman from the Team 980, our Odyssey Sports sister station, joins us in about an hour or so. We'll have a good chat with him and get everything going on around this Washington football team that the Bills will face off against on Sunday. And also, Sabres preseason gets underway in Washington on Sunday as well. What to do if you're a Buffalo sports fan in the nation's capital? Boy, you've got choices, you've got options.
Oh, stop. You're not going
to the preseason game? What? Come on.
If there's
something
not as much
more hope and optimism?
If I had to rank preseason everything, I don't even know the NBA preseason. I went to the one here in Rochester where LeBron didn't play. That was
You enjoyed that?
Fun.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's probably spring training just because you like sun. Oh my gosh, there's the sun. Yay, if you go down there and it's great and you drink and there's a game going on, you're not even paying attention. Hockey is like right at the bottom. I mean, just they don't extend this danger. It's going to be, all right, let's just do a few games. We're good. Okay, good.
Yeah, get it going. Thor Nystrom, Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros. We're going to preview tomorrow's action in college football with Thor. Get some winners, make some money. Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros, Thor Nystrom joining us next in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has sports. Update.
The Bills Friday injury report, a clean one. Tre'Davious White was given a Veterans Day of rest, but everyone else full go today, including tight end Dawson Knox. Sean McDermott is going to be looking at that weather forecast.
Right, we've been watching that and monitoring it as I know the league is as well. Feel like there's a chance that we avoid some of the weather. But you know what? We're going to play the game, and we'll have to be ready for any of the conditions that are there on game day.
It's been upgraded now to a tropical storm. Tropical storm Ophelia is due to hit the D.C. area at 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Bills and Commanders will have the call Sunday. Pre-game coverage here on The Fan begins at 9 o'clock. Final weekend of the season for the Rochester Red Wings. They finish up at Indianapolis. One game in the majors. Cubs on the Rockies. They lead 1-0 in the fourth. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
Neat or on the rocks? It's the Sports Bar with Dainter and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Unbelievable slate of college football action tomorrow. We're going to break it all down now in the Sports Bar with our superhero of the spread. He is the great Thor Nystrom of Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. Thor, this is a big one, man. This is a big weekend. And can we start with what we've been calling the biggest story in all of sports? Is this when the clock strikes midnight on the Colorado Buffaloes taking on the Oregon Ducks tomorrow afternoon? How are you, Thor?
I'm doing well. And yeah, I think the clock is about to strike midnight for Colorado. Not only do I think that, I'm laying the points there. I got a 20.5 ticket on Sunday, but I would put that one all the way up to 24. They're in trouble there. That's a bad matchup for Colorado, and they have to do it without Travis Hunter.
Yeah, a little closer to home, Thor. And we can't play on this, of course, in New York State. Can't bet on a college team here. But we're all curious about Syracuse. All right, you beat Colgate, yay, and you beat another school, and you beat Purdue, I guess. And now here comes Army into the Dome, and the Orange giving 13. And you have this look-ahead game next week when Clemson's coming in. So this would kind of be the definition, maybe, of a trap game. I don't know, but are the Orange mature enough to cover the 13 here, Thor?
Yeah, and you have the historical precedent of you just take the double-digit points whenever you can get them with the service academy. And then, of course, Syracuse is learning how to play without Aronde Gadsden. So, I mean, those would be my concerns as far as that goes. And, of course, you're looking ahead to the Clemson game as well. So I do think Syracuse is going to win that game, but I do think it could be a little bit closer than maybe the sports books do.
In the ACC, Syracuse fans will be paying attention to Clemson, Florida State as well. How do you see this playing out, Thor?
That one, I have a divergent take. I like Clemson in that game. I didn't love what I saw at Florida State last week, and Jordan Travis is banged up. And I think why that matters in this game is Florida State's running game has underwhelmed so far. I thought Trey Benson would be a little bit better this year, and that they weren't going to miss Trayshawn Ward. They clearly do, and that running game has been sluggish. On the road here against Clemson, a Clemson team that still has a very good defense, even if their offense has been underachieving to this point, you can't go in there with a one-handed offense where your one hand is through the air and the guy who's directing that is banged up right now with injuries. I think that could be a problem for Florida State. They could struggle offensively more than people think. I'm going to take Clemson in that one.
Yeah, Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, our guest. And if I had to guess what most people here in Rochester, their kind of viewing pattern tomorrow might be, all right, I'm going to watch the Orange at noon, and then I'm going to go over for the late afternoon window because that's where we're plopping the Colorado-Oregon game on. But that Colorado-Oregon game, that's one of three Pac-12 matchups with ranked opponents going against one another. We've got the Washington State-Oregon State game, but then right alongside, and I don't know anybody's going to be flipping over necessarily, but maybe you should, UCLA in Utah, 3:30 on Fox, and it's UCLA getting 5.5 points. Are we all sleeping on the Utes here, Thor?
A little bit, yeah. Especially with Cam Rising coming back. And in this game, you have, Dante Moore, the true freshman quarterback, the UCLA side. Now this is his first road game. You have to go into Utah and play in the altitude against what is a really nasty defense. Utah can shut down your running game. And if they're able to do that to UCLA, it puts all the pressure on Dante Moore to win that game through the air. That kid should be really good. but in his fourth college game, I doubt that he can get that done. Well, we'll have to see, but I'm on the Utes in that one.
Thor, in the SEC, Alabama, Ole Miss, with Ole Miss getting 6.5 right now at BetQL. What are your thoughts on this SEC matchup, Thor?
I think Ole Miss is pulling this upset, and I don't consider it much of an upset. I just think Ole Miss has the better team. That Alabama roster is way down. They have 3 quarterbacks. All of them are G5 level. Certainly, way off what Alabama's had recently. They have a running back rotation because they don't have a star there. Their receiving core has been down for multiple years now. It still is. Same thing with the offensive line. And the defense is solid, but it's not elite. And on this team, now they're going back to Jalen Milroe at quarterback. Milroe, he makes your running game better, and he's able in some ways to mitigate a little bit the offensive line struggles, but you lose the passing efficiency. Alabama's I think in the 80s, somewhere in the 80s in the rankings of passing efficiency right now. And you certainly aren't going to get any of that with Jalen Milroe as your quarterback. He can push it down the field a little bit, but he doesn't have accuracy. So the opponent in this game doesn't have to worry about him beating them in the intermediate area and moving the chains that way. I think what you're going to see is the Alabama offense bogged down again. And I think the Ole Miss offense is going to have more success, certainly when it flips the other way. Quinshon Judkins going to be able to carve away at that Alabama front seven. They get nicked by the running games. And then their pass defense, it's good with the efficiency, but it's bad allowing explosive plays. I think what you're going to see is once Judkins gets going, the RPO game and the play action, they're going to use that to suck in the Alabama safeties. They lost both of their safeties from last year. The new ones in there, suck them down and then hit those play action shots over the top.
We're talking to Thor Nystrom, Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, setting you up for is the best Saturday in recent memory here in college football. We haven't even gotten to the primetime matchup, so let's go to Happy Valley here, Thor, where Penn State ranks 7th, and they're giving 14.5 when I'm looking at this. One's on CBS tomorrow night, and the over-under isn't even at 40, at 39.5. This looks like it's tempting me to go in on Iowa here, Thor. Is this, kind of the trap not to fall into, or are you feeling comfortable enough laying everything here with Penn State in the over?
So I would be huge on Iowa, because, first of all, I've seen them go into Happy Valley, the night games, where other teams get intimidated by the whiteout and different stuff like that. I've seen Iowa in that spot play up to Penn State and give them a real scare in that. And, I was talking about, historically getting the double digits with the service academies. Same thing goes with Kirk Ferentz in Iowa. So, you would be inclined to lean that way. My only trepidation here is Iowa's offense, as you guys know, continues to struggle. And now they have to play without their top pass catcher by far and a guy who's a dual threat in Luke Lachey, their star tight end. He suffered a leg injury last week against Western Michigan. He's out for the year. And then Iowa also has a banged-up running back room. So my only concern is a bad offense, and now you're depreciated even more. I do think they're going to give some problems to that Penn State offense. Drew Allard doesn't love playing Iowa. Iowa has the awesome secondary. They have the good front seven, too. So they're going to be able to slow down Singleton and Allen there. But, yeah, it just becomes, can Iowa score enough points without Luke Lachey and with that decimated running back room? We'll have to see, but I'm staying off that one.
Thor, history has shown that if you want to upset Ohio State, it's going to happen, generally speaking, at the Shoe. They're traveling to Notre Dame, another primetime matchup between the Buckeyes and the Irish. Which way do you see this going?
I'm taking Notre Dame in this one. I think that line's 3.5, but I think Notre Dame's going to win this game outright. Ooh. Notre Dame has the secondary to be able to withstand Marvin Harrison and Igbuka and different stuff like that. And Notre Dame has a really good front seven. So, in Ohio State, their running game once again this year is sort of sluggish like it was last year. They just haven't gotten that going. And now their offensive line's not as good. They lost 3 guys to the NFL. So I think Notre Dame's going to be able to, greatly slow down that running game where Ohio State needs to win it through the air. And I think like I said, their secondary will be able to hold down Harrison and Igbuka. And meanwhile, I don't think people realize how much Notre Dame's offense has improved. In the advanced metrics, it's actually a little bit higher right now than their nasty defense is. Efficient on both passing and running. that Ohio State defense, I don't trust it, as much as some of these other defenses we're talking about. I think Notre Dame will have success doing what they want to do on offense, and I think they're going to be able to slow down the passing attack of Ohio State and their new quarterback, Kyle McCord, enough to get that win.
Before we get your thoughts on the Vikings and Chargers here, because I know you got a thought on that, I would bet here. Thor, any other games on the schedule that you like, perhaps that we can make some money on here?
Tonight, I'm laying it with North Carolina State at Virginia. That Virginia team is really bad, and this is sort of a revenge game for two key characters on the North Carolina State side. Their quarterback, Brennan Armstrong, came from Virginia, and the last time he was good, his offensive coordinator, Robert Anae, was directing the plays at Virginia for him. Those guys were able to reunite this year at NC State. This line's a little bit lower. It hasn't gotten into the double digits because that NC State offense, it's not totally gotten off the ground quite yet. But NC State's a lot more talented than Virginia, and I think in this game, Anae and Armstrong are going to be able to pour it on against that Virginia defense.
Thor, when we look at Week 3 in the NFL, let's start with the team that's in your closest to your proximity there, the Vikings. No team wants to get off to an 0-3 start, and you got a lot of points being projected here between the Chargers and the Vikings. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going with the Chargers in that one. I don't like what I've seen of this Vikings team so far. They've tried to address one, perhaps even their biggest weakness at this point, their running game, by signing Risner, and then they traded for Akers. Akers is no better than Alexander Madison is. They're both just sluggish running backs, and I don't think that the signing of Risner, certainly it's not going to have an effect in this week's game. But even over the season-long outcome, I don't think it's going to turn around the offensive line to the degree that they need it to. There's just something off with this team. It's like a pass-only team at this point. It certainly is going to be again this weekend. They're a good passing team, but when the defense only has to worry about that, it mitigates the damage that you can have there. And then my other huge concern for the Vikings, obviously, in this game is their young, inexperienced secondary going up against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. You know that Flores is going to try to send the heat on Herbert and make him uncomfortable back there. But doing that, you leave yourself thin on the back end. I think this is a bombs-away game for Herbert, and I expect the Chargers to win it.
Yeah, Thor, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the National Weather Service about this tropical storm. Now it's a tropical storm that's going to hit D.C. Oh, great. Sometime around game time for the Bills and Commanders, and you also have the Colts and Ravens, and I don't know. It would be tempting to bet the under on both of these games. Right now, the Ravens and Colts at 44, the Bills and Commanders at 43. Maybe some money will push that in lower as we get closer to game time. Or is that not a concern that, basically, hey, both of these quarterbacks, Sam Howell, Josh Allen, they can throw and win here too?
Yeah, so I always look at the weather, whether it's college or the NFL, because it's not the rain that affects it, it's the wind. And once the wind gets over 10 miles per hour in a game, it starts to statistically affect the over-under. When it gets to 15, even more. And when it gets to 20, now you're in the games typically go under, when you're looking at it over the thing. So you have to bake that in. Obviously, all the professional gamblers are as well. And so when there's news that, yes, this is going to happen, that's when you start to see those totals crash. But if you can get ahead of that and you know what the weather system is going to be in a given game before the market, you can absolutely get value by going with that.
Hey, you follow these prospects through their time in college and into the pros. What was your scouting report on Sam Howell coming into the NFL?
I liked Sam Howell up until that last year at UNC when they had lost Javonte Williams, they'd lost Michael Carter, they'd lost a receiver, and teams realized the opponents, they realized, let's just drop 8 against them every time. And then that was the year Sam Howell ran for over 1,000 yards because, he just didn't have the receiving talent there with him. So I became a little bit lower on him during that process because having watched that season, just like the NFL ended up doing, he always had that ability. You were just wondering, in instances where NFL defenses try to do that to him as well, is he going to be comfortable sitting back there in the pocket going through his progressions, or are you going to see a tuck and run fest like we saw last year at UNC, which isn't going to work in the NFL? I've been very impressed with him so far, though. Obviously, he's outperforming where his draft slot ended up being, outperforming my expectation, a lot of other people. So hopefully he can keep that going. And obviously Washington has surrounded him with at least very, very good receiving weapons.
He's our superhero of the spread, Thor Nystrom. Thor, tell everybody a little bit about Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros and how they can get more of your content.
Yeah, you can find me all my stuff on Betting Pros. You can find me on Twitter at ThorKU or X on at ThorKU. And on Saturday mornings, 10 to 11:30 Eastern, we have a live show, 90 minutes, me and Mike Farrell on Betting Pros YouTube, where we go through every game, give our picks, and take audience questions. I also give out my player props. I'm always really deep in the player prop market, especially for college, because you find really soft numbers. So come and find us on Saturday morning.
Thor, appreciate your time as always, man. Good luck tomorrow. Have a great weekend.
Always good talking to you, boys.
You got
Thanks,
it.
Thor.
Thor Nystrom, Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros. Some good information there. Now you're armed for a Saturday of college football.
Are you going to go under on Ravens and Colts at 43 now?
Yes. With Gardner Minshew starting for the Colts, with the weather and everything that's in play there, feels like it'll be a slog.
I was thinking before all this happened, because in our Superflex League, okay, I got to stream a second quarterback. Oh, Minshew. Well, that might be fun for a week. No. Not even close. Sam Howell, he's going to put up at least... No. Like the weather, and from a fantasy standpoint, you're going to have to maintain. Get
Start Minshew, you coward.
No, I didn't even pick
Minshew.
No, I didn't even pick him up.
You picked up, I know you picked up.
Yeah.
You picked up C.J. Stroud.
I did.
C.J. Stroud, the rookie.
Who is going against Jacksonville, and it's 2 weeks, but Jacksonville has the 29th ranked pass defense
And
right
Stroud's a little banged up, too, isn't he?
He is, and, I can always drop him in the last second and pick up a Gardner Minshew if I had to
Gardner
do that.
Minshew.
Or Andy Dalton is starting this week. Yes,
I mean,
the Ginger General.
When you look at what's going on with the rookie quarterbacks, and Stroud's a little bit banged up, at least he'll be out there. Richardson is out for Indianapolis. He was out of practice today. He's still working through concussion protocol. And Bryce Young is going to miss a couple of weeks with his ankle injury as well. So you mentioned it. Andy Dalton gets a start in Seattle. Jake Luton will be backing up Andy Dalton for Carolina. Keep your fingers crossed that Dalton stays upright, because that's going to be ugly fast if Jake Luton gets in the game.
It was ugly last night. I'm sorry, the Giants.
It was. Listen, what's scary about the Niners is that Brock Purdy didn't look good early in that game, and they still had their way.
I had some things going on, so I didn't get home until about 8 o'clock, and it's on, and I see it's a 3-0 game, and Giants, the check down to the receiver, 5 yards short, and I yell, oh, come on, Eli. Executive producer, that's not Eli. Oh, that's right. It just looks like him, and it plays like him.
Yeah.
My gosh, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, that offense needs a running game. Needs a guy like Saquon Barkley. Without Saquon Barkley, I don't know how that offense goes, and it didn't go last night. Niners defense is, shocking, really good. But it has to be frustrating knowing that Brock Purdy doesn't make all the throws. It's a symbiotic relationship between Purdy and Shanahan, and you can almost feel Shanahan pushing Purdy to a limit, and then when he gets too overextended, he brings him back a little bit to the throws that he knows he can make. Big games for McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Brock Purdy ends up evening it out and getting over 300 yards passing for the Niners last night. It was one-sided, 30-12. It shouldn't have even been that close. I mean, the Niners only went 2 for 5 in the red zone for touchdowns. I mean, that game could have been easily 49-12. It could have been a lot worse than it was.
It was sleepy. It really was kind of a sleepy game on a Thursday night.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break, come back with some takes on tap. I'll drink to that is on the way.
Yeah, this idea about relegation, we've talked about this. That's kind of like a summertime, hey, is there any pro sport that this would work, the English soccer thing? There's actually somebody here in the States, a big sport that is floating this out there. And I'll explain, as fun as that is, it's really not realistic. We'll see where this goes. And also, we got to give a tribute, raise a glass to one of the best who ever did it here in Rochester.
I have a sports take that might sound like a non-sports take, but trust me, it is a sports take, and it has to do with a certain tight end in the NFL who has just thrust himself into a firing zone. He just needs to really, really mind his P's and Q's here. He's flirting with danger. He's in a bad spot.
Flirting with you?
No, not specifically. No, I'll drink to that as on the way here in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Back in the Sports Bar, Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us to start your sports weekend. It's time for I'll Drink to That. Some takes on tap in the Sports Bar.
So the athletic directors at Washington State and Oregon State are in full support. Wait a second. These are the two teams that are left out. Remember, they don't really have a conference at this point. It's like a Pac-2, yeah. Washington State, Oregon State, in support of a rough draft, a proposal put together by Boise State for relegation. The idea that subdivision teams, non-Power 5 schools, can have a pathway to the national championship. And look, we talked about this for years. How would this look in different sports? Could you actually take that model of English soccer, and it works over there, and apply it to the States? And the clear answer is no. You can't do it in baseball. You don't have the facilities. I mean, I'd love to have the Red Wings as a major league team, but the way the system's set up, that won't happen. Cannot happen in the NFL. You'd have to expand big time in the NFL. Hockey, same deal. Not every arena, not every market is the same. The NBA, you get the idea. And guess what? It's not going to work in college football either. You think Alabama, Ohio State, and others want to invite Boise State or Oregon State to the party? Fat chance.
Yeah, again, follow the money. And when you break this down and you look at it, you know, if there's an opportunity, all of these businesses, it's what they are, they're sports teams, including your favorite college program. It's a business. They want to know that they're getting a return on their investment. They don't want to know that because of a relegation that their business is going to take a deep percentage of a hit in any given year. No, they want steady, consistent growth year in, year out. It's really one of the businesses that's almost a guaranteed return on your investment, right? It's only going to go up as the years go on.
Especially when you're not really paying the product directly. You're building these consortiums and like through NIL, these schools don't. Yes, you got to pay the coach. You got to pay the staff. Other than that, what are your hard expenses here?
That's right. Yeah, relegation is fun as it sounds from a business standpoint. Not happening.
Do you agree with my take, though, that I can't see it in any sport? Maybe Major League Soccer, but even still, like the league below, you wouldn't have a bunch of worthy teams.
Feels like a mess. No, I would say MLS has done a good job now consistently making their product accessible and delivering on the promises that they've made to their fan bases. I don't know why you would want to invite smaller, less organized operations just because, why? Because they're competitive? Because they've got heart? Because they're spunky? Get out of here. None of that matters. All that matters is the bottom line. I love Philadelphia Eagles center Jason Kelce going on our Odyssey Sports sister station, WIP in Philadelphia, earlier this week to confirm the rumors that his brother Travis is indeed involved with Taylor Swift. He said it's 100% true. Now, this is a sports take, I promise. First off, Jason, you need to know, you can't just go on the radio and blurt out personal details of Taylor Swift's life. Everything having to do with her brand is a series of puzzles and cryptic riddles. She sprinkles them throughout the Swiftie-verse like some deranged Johnny Appleseed for her minions to decode and decipher with glee and enjoyment. Now, Travis, there's a lot of football fans in a lot of cities that cannot tolerate you. You've heard a lot of Bills fans over the course of your career, and that's before what you did to your own brother and his teammates on the Eagles in the Super Bowl just earlier this year. Little discussed fact, Taylor Swift's dad, actually a huge Eagles fan, being that Taylor was raised on a friggin' Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania. This isn't a joke. Her tour has the power to fix our economy. Taylor writing a song about her breakup with Travis Kelce is really the least of his worries. Her powers are beyond our comprehension at this point, Gino. She could destroy the life of any celebrity she wants by just having a bowel movement. She doesn't even have to grunt, and she could end us all. And everyone in the comments section would be wondering why is she a two-ply girl instead of ultra strong? What does it mean? What's Taylor trying to tell us? Understand the power she is wielding, and it's naive of the Kelce brothers to think her forces are that penetrable. So, have a good time, Travis. Be on your best behavior. There are so many forces that could work against you, and I don't know if you can process any of it. Catch the ball, celebrate in the end zone, be a gentleman to Taylor, and know that when it ends, and we all know it's going to end, disappear. Just go out into the ether. That will be the last that we hear of Travis Kelce.
So the sports take is Travis Kelce. This is bad karma.
It's a death sentence for Travis Kelce. He's about to disappear into nothingness. You're not a Marvel guy. You know when Thanos makes the snap and the blip happens and everybody kind of turns to dust? That's what's going to happen to Travis Kelce if he wrongs Taylor Swift anytime soon.
I have a different take, and this is even more horrifying for you, Mike Danger. Ready?
With that she's listening to me right now?
Well,
she's going to do it to me?
She tried that.
Yeah.
She tried that. And again, come out the three heads in October. Mike Danger can tell you the story. No. Have they announced the halftime show yet for the Super Bowl?
No. There's
TikTok going around.
I've heard some rumors.
That's suggesting this. And
it's not going to be Taylor Swift.
Honestly, that this is some massive publicity stunt for the two of them. Like for Taylor Swift, and oh my gosh, like if you had to kind of go chalky here and promote yourself, well, why not go to the family that was in the Super Bowl last year? And what are the odds that either the Chiefs or the Eagles, one of these two teams, are going to land back in the Super Bowl this year? Honestly, Danger, I think she's playing all of us. I don't think this is real.
I think she's bigger than the Super Bowl. I'll say that again. She doesn't need the Super Bowl anymore. The Super Bowl is nice if you need to promote something. It's a big audience. She doesn't need it anymore. She's over it. It was almost as if she got snubbed by the Super Bowl for Jay-Z. Like Jay-Z said, you know what? We don't want Taylor's. Who's Jay-Z buddies with? Oh, Kanye. That's right.
Oh.
And so Jay-Z's Rock Nation has been involved in like booking Super Bowl and collaborating with, sponsors to make sure that they get, these acts that they've gotten, whether it be J-Lo and Shakira or Dre and Snoop or who was it last year? Remind me. Why am I blanking on last year? Oh, it was not The Weeknd. That was a couple of years ago. But you know what I'm saying? They always get, these artists. It was Rihanna. Rihanna last year.
Yes.
Right. Rihanna over Taylor Swift. That was probably the one that broke Taylor Swift. Like, really? I've been out here releasing music constantly, touring constantly. Rihanna's just counting her checks.
Well, no, wasn't it the soft drink thing? Like, it was always the Pepsi halftime show, and I thought, wasn't Taylor Swift a Coke endorser?
I don't know.
You don't like that. That was it. But I think that ended.
My point here, my bigger point here is that she doesn't need the NFL. She doesn't need the Super Bowl. She's bigger than all of that right now. The rumor I heard is that NSYNC is going to reunite and they'll do a performance at the Super Bowl halftime show. Yeah, we saw Justin Timberlake do a Super Bowl halftime show not once with the wardrobe malfunction, but twice. And now you're going to have him up there a third time with all the old NSYNC guys.
Yes, and then you can go and have whoever you want, make it a retro show. Of course.
And now it's a promotional vehicle for when they do their tour next summer and the whole thing. I've seen this story too many times. It's not going to be Taylor Swift.
Have you ever met Taylor Swift?
Yes. We were backstage for her show here in Rochester. This would have been years ago. She was opening for Keith Urban.
Really?
Yeah. And believe it or not, I saw her performance that night, and I left the show saying and I said this to her representatives. I'm like, she is going to be the biggest star in the world. I was right. Now, I don't really appreciate how she got there because it's kind of ruthless and cutthroat, and she's stepped on everybody she's needed to step on to get to where she is. She's got some talent. I'm not going to take anything away from her. She's the biggest star in the world. She doesn't need the Super Bowl. Her superpowers are beyond our comprehension at this point. Travis Kelce just needs to be very, very careful of what happens here in the future.
I think the whole thing's fake. That's my thing.
Okay.
It's going to be a little different around here at Radio City here in High Falls because of that booming laugh. No more. 40 years on Rochester radio came to an end today. WBEE's Terry Clifford calling it a career. Terry is the most relatable personality in the history of Rochester radio. That is a fact. If you weren't her friend, you wanted to be her friend. And she came across on the air like she was your friend. And that's the best compliment I could give you, Terry. But Terry, I'm sorry. the Yankees are still going nowhere in 2024.
Yeah, you always knew when Terry was in the room. The laughter is contagious. Just an unbelievable personality, a giving soul, a kind soul. She'll be missed. And just an absolute pro. And you know it's authentic and it's genuine because you're not just hearing it from her coworkers. You're hearing it from people that have never worked with her. You're hearing it from listeners who've only listened to her on the radio, maybe met her a handful of times. It's all real. It's all true. Everything about Terry is real and true. And I'm gonna miss seeing her. I'm gonna miss her laugh. I'm gonna miss her contagious energy. That's a tough loss. But at the same time, for her, man, I know she's got some amazing plans for retirement, and she's gonna. You worry about some people when they retire, like, oh, their purpose has been taken from them, and they don't know what they're gonna do. Like, I'm not worried about that with Terry. Terry's gonna be just fine.
No, she's got 2 grown children or daughters in Chicago now, and you can go out and visit. You can do things on your own timeline. And here's a newsflash. It's not fun waking up in the morning every morning at like 4:30, whatever you got to do when you're doing morning radio.
Yeah, enjoy those extra hours. And I like to say to anybody who I'm friends with who ends up retiring, man, enjoy your gift of time. We all get so caught up in our day-to-day that sometimes we forget how valuable our time is. If you've been laid off, it could be a downer, right? Like, oh, God, I'm laid off. You have the gift of time, and you can use that gift to regroup and find your purpose, just re-energize yourself. The gift of time is everything.
I know so many people that have gone into retirement where they don't really have a plan, but thankfully for people that have been around us, Steve Hausman, for example, I saw him at Terry's retirement party, and he's loving life. He's just kind of like doing his own thing and travel wherever he wants.
That's right, and that's the way to do it. And you have that going for you. If you're Terry Clifford, we'll miss you, Terry. We appreciate you. And boy, I know today was bittersweet and very emotional. Lots of laughs, lots of tears. She'll be missed.
Somebody asked me, and I asked her. I'm like, okay, are you gonna cry? Are you gonna go out with both arms up in the air? Or are you gonna be like, all right, adios? Typical Terry is a little everything.
All of it. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break here. Come back. Craig Hoffman will be joining us here in a few. We'll go to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and talk to the host of the Craig Hoffman Show on the Team, 980, our Odyssey Sports sister station. Learn a little bit more about the Bills' opponent. We'll talk a little bit about this weather situation that's popping up here in the Mid-Atlantic for Sunday. Yeah. Yes. Oh, no. We don't need Count Hetzko to show up and tell us how fast the wind is going to be blowing on Sunday afternoon, but we'll get to that and more next here on the Sports Bar. Step into action this weekend. This NFL season is on with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than now. Join me on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/Mike to kick off the NFL season. Use that promo code to put a little wind in the sails. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Again, FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E, to play along with me throughout the course of the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Hi, my name is Mata, the store manager at the newly remodeled Hudson Ave Quicklies, and I love my job. Every day I meet new people and have developed
FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills injury report on a Friday is a clean one. Now, Tre'Davious White given a Veterans Day rest. Everyone else a full go in practice today, including tight end Dawson Knox. Sean McDermott on facing a new quarterback in Sam Howell.
Very impressed. Like you mentioned, smart, understands their system, makes plays both throwing the football and with his legs. He has really broken some defenses with his legs in critical third down situations or in the red zone as well. So he's done a fabulous job.
Now, the issue in this game, the weather. Tropical storm Ophelia due to hit the D.C. area somewhere around 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Our pregame coverage Sunday will begin at 9 a.m. here on The Fan Rochester. Final weekend of the season for the Red Wings. They're in Indy. Cubs are up on the Rockies 3-0. They're in the 6th. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Happy Football Friday to you, my friend. Let's get it.
And it was an easy victory for the 49ers.
Bills Commanders, 1 o'clock Sunday live right here.
Buy or sell? The Eric Bieniemy effect.
Mike Danger.
I don't think it's going to be an easy task for Buffalo, but I think they have enough talent to get over. Bills win 24-21.
Gene Battaglia.
I think with Washington and Eric Bieniemy, they'll do some things on offense. Are we going to get good Josh, bad Josh, or somewhere in between? I don't think the Bills' offensive line all of a sudden solved everything. This is a big test against that team coming up.
Once I saw tropical cyclone, it got my attention.
Hey, what are they calling it? A tropical cyclone? I heard that was Gene's nickname in high school.
It was actually Mean Gene, but go on.
Mean Gene, the tropical cyclone.
You guys enjoy it when fantasy experts pretend to be lawyers or doctors. You're really going to enjoy it when we pretend to be meteorologists.
I am Count Tesco.
Certainly the best weekend thus far of the college football season.
Oh, yeah, folks.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
You're back in the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us. Kick off your sports weekend. Got a great slate of college football tomorrow. Got a great slate week 3 in the NFL, including the Bills and the Commanders. We'll have that action for you here on The Fan with kickoff just after 1 o'clock.
Can we take credit, though, too, here? Because this is now year 3. You and I have been doing the Friday night rivals. We've yet to have a bad weather game. Every Friday is like this here in Rochester, and that's because of us, Dan.
I think so.
Yeah.
And we can expect that for the rest of the season, right? We're only halfway through after tonight. We've got 4 more weeks to go.
4 more weeks, yeah.
4 more weeks to power through with perfect fall-like weather, fall-like conditions. It's been fantastic. And by the way, the action has been fantastic as well. We had a great game in Honeoye Falls last weekend.
We get the game tonight in Class A, East and Canandaigua.
This is the one.
This is the one where East this is the team they can't get past. But Canandaigua, since they built that stadium, and it is a stadium, would you not say, down there? It's like, that is a legit stadium they built down there. Beautiful. They've only lost once there.
We called that game.
Right.
It was the Hilton game.
Yeah.
Hilton, a Class A team playing, Class AA team playing Class A last year. According to head coach Rich Lapani, which we love. And so, tonight, big matchup between Canandaigua. It's a rematch of last year's sectional final between East and Canandaigua.
3 of the last 4 years they've met in the final.
Yeah. So that'll be a lot of fun tonight, Gino and I, as soon as we close up shop here in the Sports Bar, heading to the Chosen Place. Is that what it stands for? The
Chosen Place, Canandaigua.
Yeah, the Chosen Place. We will be there tonight. Looking forward to that. We've still got happy hour coming up here less than an hour from now. A round of shots next hour as well. And as I mentioned, Craig Hoffman from the Team 980 in Washington, D.C., joining us here in about 15, 20 minutes, and we'll learn more about this Washington Commanders team that is facing the Buffalo Bills. And I think if, these two teams met last year and it was a laugher, like we just kind of like, okay. This year feels different, and I think a lot of it has to do with momentum. I think a lot of it has to do with how Washington has started this year, and I think a lot of it has to do with how Washington has gotten better since these two teams last met. You've got a better offensive coordinator now in Eric Bieniemy. You certainly have a better owner, and the way you won your first 2 games of the season, albeit against inferior opponents, it gives me a little bit of concern for the Bills going in there on the road And with weather being the equalizer that it is.
There you go.
There's a lot going on here that makes me believe this won't be as easy for Buffalo this season as it was last season when they hosted the Commanders. I have Buffalo winning, but it's narrow. It's 24-21, and I think Sean McDermott's defense gets taken advantage of a couple of times by Eric Bieniemy.
Do not care about style points. This can be an ugly win. You should expect that in these conditions. I have this game going under 17-13 Buffalo, and it is going to be windy, and Sam Howell does have a strong arm. But what Thor Nystrom said was interesting, and I'm glad you asked that question. Like, why didn't this kid get more run coming out of the combine and everything else? And what Thor's answer was a good one. Like, hey, he had talent. He had Carter. He had some other guys. And then his senior year, he didn't. And he couldn't process it. He was forced to take off. And he could make plays with his legs. But if the Bills do the McDermott thing I expect, and that is only bring 4. In fact, maybe only bring 3 and put more people back there. I mean, could you make Sam Howell make some mistakes in this game? And that's the hope here, that this Bills defense is going to be the thing that carries this team. And Josh, you don't need to do anything other than be smart in this game.
I think they call that complementary football, right? The defense takes care of the offense takes care of the defense. Defense does their job. They're disciplined. They are where they need to be. They prevent any big gains in the run game and force Sam Howell to beat them through the air, which could be problematic if he has a hard time processing downfield. And the longer he holds onto the football, the more of a liability he becomes as well. And again, the weather being a factor there. But I still have Buffalo coming out on top, albeit by a field goal. 24-21 is my prediction for Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, so we both have the Bills winning but not covering. And again, this is one of those, like, who cares? You get the W. Maybe the rain kind of dampens the atmosphere. I don't know. This was kind of the big game where, hey, if you were a fan of Washington, it's not like you're going around very, very, very proud. You can see problems with this team. And if you were, maybe alum is the wrong word, but that's how they're going to treat us. They're bringing back all their alums, 175 of them for this game. And, yeah, it's going to have that sort of feel at the stadium. Yes, there will be a lot of Bills fans, but can you kind of rekindle some of the old energy that has kind of eroded over the years down in D.C.?
There's one particular Washington alum that has some pretty strong ties to the Buffalo Bills. And we'll have to see what Craig Hoffman has to say about Lorenzo Alexander's contributions to Sunday's game.
Is that funny? Like, or what position did he play in? What
he has everything. He played everywhere.
He played on the offensive line. He played on the defensive line. To think how he reshaped his body to play outside linebacker for the Bills is just kind of crazy, the path that he took in the NFL. I mean, if you had to pick, probably London Fletcher. I didn't,
another one.
Yeah, there was another guy. Somebody else more recent, Logan Thomas, not going to be available. He has been ruled out for this game. The tight end getting clocked, so did not make it through concussion protocol in time to get cleared for this game. So Logan Thomas will not be available for Washington.
And they can't look ahead because they've got an opponent on Sunday, but we sure can. And I'm just allowing myself to live in a world where next week's game, assuming the Bills do what we think they're going to do, you're playing for first place against the Miami Dolphins, who could trip up at home with a Denver Broncos team coached by the guy that the owner wanted to hire to be his head coach in Miami, and Sean Payton. Can the Broncos avoid an 0-3 start by upsetting Miami at home? Jalen Waddle returning to practice today, still working through concussion protocol. So it sounds like he is trending in the direction of maybe making a return to the field. And Tyreek Hill a little bit banged up, but practicing as well. So the Dolphins should be in good shape and have their full complement against the Broncos on Sunday. But next Sunday, when the Dolphins come to Orchard Park, next week's going to be fun.
That is going to be a blast. Hopefully we get a nice weather day. If it's a bad weather day, even better for Tua and the Dolphins. Come on up. It's a little chilly, a little rainy. Are the Bills going to look ahead? I don't think so. I think that the weather's going to get their attention, get everybody kind of dialed in for this game. Chris writing in one of our favorites, Sean McDermott will drop a defensive game plan so good that Robert McNamara We'll personally congratulate him. He's the Secretary of Defense.
Oh, this was
This
was Tommy's bold prediction from this morning. Yeah, that a dead guy is going to emerge from the grave and congratulate Sean McDermott on his defensive performance. Not likely to happen, but appreciate.
Did he look that up and not go fully? Like, who is?
He threw out a name, and then when you look up the name, you're like, oh yeah, he was the Secretary of Defense, and he died like 10 years ago. Not likely that he's going to emerge from the grave in Arlington.
I don't feel bad. I had to look it up. Lloyd Austin is the current Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, I had no idea. Yeah. So yeah, a dead guy is not going to rise from the dead and congratulate Sean McDermott. That's my guess, anyways.
It's a free one, you guys.
Yeah,
got.
It's a free one. I mean, look, he correctly, the Swami correctly predicted that Josh Allen would be AFC Offensive Player of the Week this week. So with that going, I have to question all of my life choices. I really don't know what I'm doing anymore. If those are the predictions that are going to happen, that a dead guy, I think a dead guy is probably going to stay dead. I don't imagine that we'll have a Michael Jackson Thriller-esque type of scene in Washington with zombies rising from the dead to congratulate Sean McDermott. We'll have that action for you with pregame getting underway 9 a.m. Sunday morning, right after Italian Carousel. Joe Capogreco, and then kickoff just after 1 o'clock with Chris Brown, Eric Wood, and Sal Capaccio roaming the sidelines.
All these years, we haven't been invited on the Italian Carousel. You have crossover TV events, you have crossover radio shows.
Maybe what we need, free programming tip for the Italian Carousel. Instead of worrying about delivering soccer scores from Italy, give us an update on local bocce leagues happening at the Italian. I'm hearing a lot of rumblings in my neighborhood about an upstart team that is upsetting veteran teams in the bocce leagues.
I think bocce is the one sport that, if you're actually in your 40s, that's way too young. It's like your 70s. That's when you master it. Yeah.
You guys, just a few years older than me, living in my neighborhood, playing against guys in their 80s and 90s and getting waxed. but all of a sudden, an upstart little group, a ragtag group of Goombas from my neighborhood are upsetting the bocce league. I got Richie C texting me this morning going, "Hey, we're in second place, pal. Show some respect. Bocce is back. It's still a thing." All right, so maybe that's for the Italian Carousel to update on Sunday morning from 7 to 9 with Joe Capogreco. Leading you right into pregame. Craig Hoffman from the Team 980, our Odyssey Sports sister station in Washington, D.C., joins us next. And we've got a lot to get to with Craig. Want to learn not just about the Commanders and the team that the Bills will be facing. There's a lot to get to with Eric Bieniemy and the job that he's done as the offensive coordinator. And of course, Josh Harris, you've got a new owner. Daniel Snyder is out. What's the celebration been like with Washington? What's the vibe around this team right now?
Yeah, and granted, Craig's not a meteorologist, but he's right in the middle of this, so he can kind of give us an idea what kind of to expect here coming up Sunday, too. Yeah.
Quick break, and then we'll get to Craig Hoffman next here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite
Buffalo Bills Friday injury report. Everyone practiced today with one exception. Tre'Davious White, just a Veterans Day off. Dawson Knox also practicing. He has a back issue, but he'll be fine. Sean McDermott will be looking at that weather forecast.
Right, we've been watching that and monitoring it as I know the league is as well. Feel like there's a chance that we avoid some of the weather. But you know what? We're going to play the game, and we'll have to be ready for any of the conditions that are there on game day.
Bills and Commanders will have the call Sunday. Pregame coverage on the Fan begins at 9 a.m. Final weekend of the season for the Rochester Red Wings. They finish up at Indianapolis. Just one game in the majors. The Cubs looking to stay alive here as they're trying to lock up a wild card. They're up 5-0 against the Rockies in the 7th. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Hey, welcome back into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester, gearing up for Sunday afternoon in Washington, D.C. The Bills, the Commanders. And to learn more about the Bills' opponent on Sunday, we welcome in our buddy Craig Hoffman from Odyssey Sports sister station, the Team 980 in D.C. Craig, good afternoon. I am one of the belief that this will not be an easy task for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. I want to get into this matchup with you a little bit deeper. Washington at 2-0. Talk about how the Commanders got there, Craig.
Yeah, first of all, great to be back with you guys. Always a pleasure to be on the show. And that seems to be a growing sentiment that Bills fans are being a little weary of, and NFL observers are going, wait a second, this Washington team, it's a little spunk to them. They got here because their defense is very, very good. Defensive line has played fantastic. Daron Payne has continued what was a Pro Bowl season last year and elevated his game to what has been an all-pro level through 2 games. John Allen is still every bit as good as Payne is. Montez Sweat has played at a Pro Bowl level, and now Chase Young is back and showed some flashes last week that are incredibly encouraging that he can potentially be an impact player like he was drafted to be number 2 overall back in 2020. And then on the offensive side, you've seen the impact of Eric Bieniemy. You've seen a fully functioning, grown-up 2023 NFL offense, and a quarterback in Sam Howell looks a lot more like the highly projected prospect that he was after his sophomore year at North Carolina, as opposed to the guy who ultimately got drafted in the 5th round in last year's draft. So they've been able to put it together so far. I mean, not like incredible blowout performances. They beat Arizona by 4 and ultimately beat Denver by 2, although there's a Hail Mary at the end of that game that kind of makes the score, I mean, I guess it makes the score look closer than the game flow was, but the score is what it is. And that's how they've wound up at 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, if there is one equalizer in football, too, it's like, come on, the weather, it's September. We're getting like a weather game here. Maybe, maybe not. What are they saying down there about the forecast on Sunday, Craig?
Yeah, there's definitely a chance that it's going to be pretty nasty. There's a tropical storm coming through, and there was hope that it would stay wide. The latest forecasts I have seen have it smashing FedEx Field on Sunday right as the game is going. Which really sucks for someone who does a pregame show off-site and was planning on going to the game and is going to have to walk through a parking lot with a bunch of equipment. But this isn't about me. Yeah, no, it's going to be windy, it's going to be rainy, it's going to be sloppy. And at that point, like, I mean, all this great schematic stuff that Eric Bieniemy does, like, cool story, bro. Like, I don't know there's a better bad weather quarterback than Josh Allen in the entire league. So I would think that actually leans towards Buffalo a little bit, but you also tend to think that weather equalizes 2 teams with talent, and I think a lot of people would say that Buffalo is a little bit more talented. So I don't know how the weather ultimately affects it. It is truly a wild card, and right now it does look like the nastiness of that it could be pretty high.
Craig, I want to talk a little bit more about the Commanders' offense. I don't think enough people are talking about the job that Sam Howell has done through 2 weeks. It's essentially his rookie year. He didn't play last year. Eric Bieniemy is a new offensive coordinator. He's out of the shadow of Andy Reid. And at the beginning of the preseason and training camp, you heard a lot of players complaining about Eric Bieniemy. How did he get everybody to buy in and talk a little bit more about the success that he's brought to the offensive side of the ball for this team?
So that story is an interesting one because it was Ron Rivera doing a terrible job of telling what actually happened. which is at the beginning of training camp and even as far back as OTAs, players were like, this is intense. Like, this is a lot. Like, I don't love this. I'm getting pushed really hard. And Rivera was basically like, he's here to, you better get comfortable being uncomfortable because this is how we're doing things now. And if you have a problem with, like, you actually think there's a substantive problem here. And some of it was like, yes, you're pushing us too hard. But some of it was also like, hey, guys aren't getting everything. We're moving too fast. We need to slow down. Like, go talk to Eric. Like, his door is open. And players did. They got all the same page. And Ron's, like, super happy about it because he's like, look, I told them to make nice, and they did. And now everyone's hunky-dory happy. And even that day in practice, like, Rivera had said to Bieniemy, like, man, they are so bought into you. This is so great. And that press conference that kind of now is infamous and launched the story you're referring to, it happened that morning. And Rivera's not aware that on social media, his comments had blown up as like players hate Bieniemy. So by the time the story becomes public, because Ron says something in a very, just an inaccurate, I think, the way it ultimately got portrayed way, players had already long bought in. It wasn't an issue. So the way that happened was players saw that it made them better. That like, oh, wow, if I just listen to what he says, like I do better. And we feel like we're doing things differently, and the way we've done things in the past was not very successful. So I think it was pretty quick that people got on board and they realized, like, oh, this guy's won Super Bowls. This is what it means to practice and play at a championship level. We're going to listen to him, and it really wasn't like there wasn't some mutiny. There wasn't anything really that serious outside of just an adjustment period, and it was really much ado about nothing by the time that thing became public.
I do love the fact that Eric Bieniemy is taking this path. Like, it's not working for me to become a head coach, still serving as the offensive coordinator in Kansas City, as obviously I'm not getting the credit, but is there something else other than Andy Reid was viewed for the success and not Eric Bieniemy? Something else that was holding Eric Bieniemy back, in your opinion, Craig?
I mean, yeah, how blunt do you want me to be with it?
It is as blunt as you want.
I mean, race. Like, there is a lot of rich, old, white owners who listen to Eric Bieniemy, listen to the way that he speaks, and go, I don't want that guy being the face of my franchise. And that's very dumb because Eric Bieniemy is perhaps the smartest offensive mind that I've ever talked to in my whole life. Like, he is so brilliant, but he has – I remember talking to a member of the Commanders organization about this, and this particular member of the organization was also a black man who grew up in a neighborhood that wasn't far from Bieniemy, if I'm remembering correctly. And he's like, this is just how we speak from where I'm from, and it's not like your most proper Queen's English. And, for a lot of NFL owners, like that's what their idea of leadership is. It's something that looks and sounds like them because they've been successful enough to be rich enough to buy an NFL franchise. And so EB would get in these interviews and, if there was a player in there, they would have been like, that's the smartest, like that guy's going to help me get better. Like he's so smart. Oh my God, he's brilliant offense, offensive mind. He's super organized. He's very detail oriented, like everything that you ever want in a leader. And he just doesn't, like, they can't imagine him being at the press conference. And I truly, honestly think that can be the only real reason why. Like, he's uncompromising in the standard, but he is very human in the way he approaches it. Like, he'll have conversations. He has this line that we've then cut up and made a part of a stinger that we use for one of our segments where he's like, I'm going to be their number one critic, but I'm also going to be their number one fan. So his players know at this point in the process, even a couple of, weeks into the regular season, that like he's going to have their back. He's going to support them. He's going to give them the tools that they need to get better, but he's going to tell them exactly what he needs them to do to get better. And I think that's led to the success, along with like the schematic brilliance, the understanding of where the NFL is, where defenses are, what they want to do, what actually works, how you adjust to players' strengths and weaknesses. Like, he's got all of that stuff that's gone into them being good offensively. But as to why, like, yes, the Andy Reid part of it, how much did he actually call plays, all that stuff factors into it at some level. But, like, I cannot imagine sitting down for an interview with the guy that I've now talked to in a press conference setting and talked to multiple people around the organization about and not going, that guy should be a head coach. Like, I truly do not understand it outside of the obvious reason that I said. I think sometimes the obvious is the obvious for a reason.
So is it fair to think that if this keeps up, he's a head coach next year? You're going to be looking for another OC in DC next season?
It's possible. I don't know whether it's going to take a year or two. And I do think that there is some possibility. I mean, this is a hot topic here of like, oh my God, if EB is so good and he's going to get another coaching job, should they fire Rivera and keep EB? And like, I don't think that's fully off the table, but no one here is thinking about that right now. Like, it's 1 week at a time, and Josh Harris, the new owner, is drinking from a fire hose of more imminent problems he's got to deal with than what happens in January or February of this off season regarding a coach when he doesn't have a season's full of results yet. But I do think that if Sam Howell continues to play well, he will be in the conversation again, and he's going to have to decide, do I want to, keep doing this? Do I want to build something here? And, maybe we have a succession plan in place and I can have a partnership with Sam Howell if he's really this good for, 5-10 years, or do I go somewhere else and run my own ship? Because I do think like the equation here has changed dramatically with Harris as the owner, where this is now going to be a destination type of job for whoever the next head coach is, or for Rivera to try to keep for himself as long as possible, as opposed to, hey, you get to work for Dan Snyder. Good luck.
Craig Hoffman, the Team 980, talking Bills and Commanders coming up. We'll have the pregame coverage beginning at 9 a.m. Here Sunday on the Fan Rochester. What was it like when it finally happened? It finally happened. You got rid of the guy. Like, your fan base had to be so excited. Bring us to that scene. What was that like when finally you get a new owner here?
So we did an event on July 20th is a day that I probably will never forget. But July 20th was the date, and we knew that the vote was going to happen, and we were able to put together an event with our two sports radio stations here in D.C. That we both own, our Odyssey stations. We called it Burgundy and Sold, and we did it at the Bullpen, which is like this big outdoor area outside of Nats Park, which our stations are right down the street from. And we had like 5,000 people there. It was nuts.
Wow.
Like literally thousands of people at this event. And the moment that the vote goes final, like there's just mass celebration. It was incredible. Also, Harris had gotten wind of it, and he called into Grant and Danny, the other afternoon show down here, and said, I'm buying everybody at your deal and at the Bullpen a beer. Like, talk about getting off to a great start, being in touch with the people. It's just been jubilant. Like, he's really good, man. Like, and the thing is, he doesn't have the new owner syndrome of like, well, I'm going to come in and be the smartest person in the room, and I know everything, and all these stupid other billionaires don't know what they're doing, because he's been a professional sports owner. Like, he's seen how to run things with the Sixers and the Devils, and he's found what works and found what doesn't. And he also has a deep sense of responsibility to the community. He grew up here. Like, this is his hometown team. He remembers what it was like in the 90s and the 80s when Washington was the biggest brand in the entire league. And he wants to restore that glory. And so he feels a deep, deep sense of responsibility to do things right, to make this a team and a franchise that people are proud of. And he has acted that way and spent money that way. He's already put $40 million into FedEx Field, which he's going to tear down in a couple of years. So it has been, that moment, that day was incredible. And he has continued that, along with the rest of his ownership group, which includes Magic Johnson, which is really cool for, the 2 months since.
Greg, I'm a big believer in the psychology of momentum, and a lot of critics would say that Washington really didn't beat good teams weeks 1 and 2, but you're 2-0 through 2 weeks. You got the Bills on deck. The Eagles are 2-0. The Cowboys are 2-0. How far can that momentum carry Washington realistically going into this season, going into the rest of the season here in the NFC East?
I mean, I definitely think it can. I mean, even if you're competitive with Buffalo, like I can hear a Rivera speech of something like, hey, they're one of the best in the league. We know that we got to get better, but like we're on the right track. And I think that's where the momentum becomes very, very real too, is like we talked about the trust that players have in Bieniemy and, what they're doing. And Jack Del Rio on the defensive side has done a good job as well over the last couple of years of really revamping and tweaking things throughout the season. They've had some slow starts, but Jack has done a good job of finding the solutions during the season. And I think when you have that trust and you're like giving it your all, EB actually had this great answer yesterday about, asking Sam Howell what are his favorite plays in certain situations. And Eric was like, I've learned that if the player has input, they will give you 100%. And, that idea is kind of what I think the momentum, or where the momentum matters, is if they believe in what they're doing, they're going to keep pushing forward to maximize their own individual talent and their collective potential in a major way. And so they are on the right track because they're talented. They're on the right track because they have far better schematic acumen than the years past. They're on the right track because they're just in physically better shape. The way they ran their training camp was way better than in the past. And they also have a high sense of self-belief. And I think if they can continue that, they believe they're going to compete every single week. And I don't see why they couldn't do that.
Craig, I'm curious about the atmosphere, because when the Bills go to places like Nashville, Miami, I mean, there's half or more Bills fans essentially, and certainly in the old days at RFK, that was a tough place to go in and play. And it to me from the outside, it looked like eroded. But you have all these all-time greats I hear coming back this week. I mean, what kind of atmosphere are the Bills players going to be facing here this week?
There will be Bills fans there because Bills fans are perhaps the best in the entire country at travel, like on the road games, and they get ahead of it. Like they know they're going to do it. So, before the sale was final and when we still didn't know the timeline, before they started, selling out FedEx Field, Bills fans had bought their tickets. And so there will be certainly not half the stadium like there has been in the past, but there will be a decent chunk of Bills fans. But the place is sold out, and it's going to be nuts. Like, if the Commanders get off to a good start, that place is going to be rocking. Week one, unfortunately, I was sick. I wasn't able to actually go to the game in person, but I was talking to Adam Amin from Fox Sports, who called the game afterwards, and he's like, man, that was a different place than I had been to the previous couple of years that I've been calling games here, because it just felt like a different building. And, on TV, like Adam and Mark Schlereth laid out for like 40 seconds and just let the atmosphere go. And watching on TV from my couch, I was like, this is nuts. I've never heard FedEx Field sound like that. So, yeah, there's 175 alums coming, including some pretty big names. I do wonder, I'm going to ask him on my show today, what colors will Lorenzo Alexander be wearing? Because Zoe is coming. Obviously, a Bills great, also a Washington great. I tend to think he'll probably be wearing the Washington Legends polo. But, I know Zoe has so much love for Buffalo and is still very involved in the community up there. But, I'll ask him today. But, Zoe, there's going to be everybody and anybody there. Fans are going to be going nuts. Obviously, if Josh Allen comes out and has a day, then, the Bills fans will be heard. But I would say it's going to be the best Washington atmosphere that Bills fans will have seen, since they moved out of RFK in the late 90s.
So Craig, you mentioned that the money's being poured into FedEx for renovations and they're going to tear it down. What's the latest on a new stadium for the Commanders, and will it indeed be the old RFK site that we were referencing that was such a great memory for so many football fans for so many years?
So there was actually pretty significant movement on this week. There was a bill that got through the House Oversight Committee. So I'll try to make this as quick and not boring as possible. But the RFK site is federal land. It has to go thus because we don't have senators in our own self-governance here in the District of Columbia. I hope everyone can hear the disdain in my voice as someone who is an actual resident. But since we don't have that, like our land and certain things are controlled by Congress, by the House of Representatives, by the Senate, et cetera. And so the House Oversight Committee passed through their committee a bill allowing the next stage of the process to go for the RFK site to eventually be used for a football stadium along with other uses. And so there is a full House vote that will come somewhere down the line. Eventually that would have to go through the Senate and everything as well. It's going to be a long slog, but the Commanders were very, very happy with this step to put this on the table. Ultimately, they might just say no, though, because I don't think they'll get any additional money, where the state of Virginia might give them, or the Commonwealth of Virginia, as they prefer to be called, might give them up to $1 billion to build a stadium. So there's a lot. And then Maryland, who's the home of the team now, like their governor, Wes Moore, is still adamant that he would like to keep the team. So there's going to be stiff competition. This is how it should have been for years. You're also dealing with a tight timeline because 2027 is when the lease expires at FedEx Field. Maryland would happily extend it, but they want to be out of there as soon as possible because even though Josh Harris has made upgrades, that place sucks. Like, parking is a mess. Getting there stinks. Traffic is abysmal. The stadium itself is dated and dumpy. There's not a lot of great modern amenities. It's not good. And so the faster they can get out, the better. And in that way, the old RFK site is the hardest because building in the district, one, they would get started later than they could in either Maryland or Virginia. Two, it's much more difficult and regulated. A lot of union shops, things like that, which, depending on how you feel politically, those are your political thoughts. But from a pure, chronological status, those tend to be a little bit longer on the building and can at times be more expensive on the building side. I think it would be worth it. It's easy to say. It's not my money. I just didn't spend $6 billion on the football team like Josh Harris did. That is the spiritual home of the team, though, and I think if they can make it work, they absolutely would like to return the team to the district.
Yeah, last one from me, and kind of a joke here. Where's Snyder these days? Is he in the Mediterranean with ladies, or what's he doing these days?
His yacht is Lady S, so there's a chance that he's out there somewhere doing whatever. Who knows? He and his family moved to London. They have vacated the area. And they, as far as we know, are just waiting to see if they have to come back because they're under federal investigation. So that's the latest I know on Dan Snyder.
And we'll leave it at that, Craig. Tell us a little bit about your coverage leading up to the big game on Sunday. What can we check out that you're putting out there on the Odyssey app?
So Take Command Podcast is a great, easy way to get all of the Commander side of it. It's myself and Logan Paulson, who played 10 years in the league and is like the smartest football media guy that I know. We had our pal Sal Capaccio on as well. I was also on It's Game Day in Buffalo, so if people want to check that out, the Bills Odyssey Podcast, you can do that. I host a daily radio show, 4 to 7 on the Team 980, and then the Take Command pregame show. It all comes together Sunday morning at 10 a.m. We stream it on both 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980, and you can watch it on YouTube, which is fun.
That's always fun. Craig, stay dry. Appreciate the time today.
Try my best. Thank you, boys.
That's our guy, Craig Hoffman, from the Team 980 in Washington, D.C., our Odyssey Sports sister station, giving us a little peek behind the curtain of the Washington Commanders and their 2-0 start.
Going to be watching a lot of Jim Cantore, I think, this weekend, just trying to figure this out. Just wondering here, Danger, if this is a public safety thing and maybe you have wind and down power lines and everything else, and if you know the thing is going to get passed through, say, till 7 o'clock, then why not start the game until then?
Well, public safety, that's the thing you have to watch out for. So what are the things that could prevent them from starting this game at its 1 o'clock kickoff? Lightning would be a thing, I think, that would probably prevent them from starting it on time. Wind, they'll start it. Rain, they'll start it. Wind and rain, they'll still start it on time. It's really lightning and
public safety.
And public safety. Like, if there's flooding, which I don't think there will be, then, that it becomes an issue. But I don't think that this will be that kind of, I think it's just going to be a bad storm. I just think it's going to be a windy, rainy, sloppy mess that they'll play through, that they won't cancel, and that it'll just be ugly. It'll just be ugly. For the sake of, avoiding the elements, you could push it off. You could absolutely push it off. It wouldn't be hard for them to push it off, but the NFL prefers to keep things on their agenda and keep things on their schedule. When you hear the rumblings of how upset the NFL was that they had to cancel the Monday night game where a guy almost died or did die on the field, they want to run things the way they want to run things. And if there's no risk of any sort of public safety, if it's wind and it's rain, I don't think they're moving anything.
Does it brings heavy rain? Is it going to bring lightning? That's the thing that's gonna make our mind up here.
Yeah, I mean, if we've seen them push back the start of preseason games for thunderstorms in the summertime, that wouldn't surprise me. If there's lightning, if there's a public safety issue with the stadium and the fans in the stadium, if it's just wind and it's just rain, I think the NFL is more than happy to let the fans and the players be absolutely miserable, soaking wet, and getting blown all over the place. That'll be Sunday afternoon.
Wow, can you imagine the Bills 1-2 and you lose a game 7-0 or something like that because you just can't move or throw the ball or anything if it's going to be that bad?
Yeah, I do like what Craig said there, though, that if you looked at all of the quarterbacks in the NFL, Josh Allen may be the best bad weather quarterback in the league. He certainly has played through some rough conditions and fared decent in those conditions as well. All right, let's get to some other news and notes from around the NFL here, Gino. It's appetizers in the sports bar, and we talked a little bit at the beginning of the show about the one-sided affair last night in Santa Clara, the Giants falling to the Niners, who remain undefeated, 30-12. And this wasn't as close as 30-12. The Niners only went 2 for 5 in the red zone, settled for 3 field goals. It could have been a lot more lopsided. 13th straight regular season victory for the Niners. Christian McCaffrey has now scored a touchdown in 12 consecutive games. And the Giants now at 1-2. No Saquon Barkley, meant more on the arm of Daniel Jones. Not a great night. 22 of 32, only 137 yards. And an interception.
So it will be Gardner Minshew as Anthony Richardson is out on the Friday report. You brought this up earlier. It was Richardson who reported the symptoms first. Well, he's in the protocol. He's not out of it. So it's Gardner Minshew against Baltimore week 3. And, oh, yeah, that's also in the path of tropical storm Ophelia coming on through. Another injury note. Sorry for everybody who owns Austin Eckler. He will not be available. He's been ruled out for the Chargers in their game against Minnesota.
And speaking of rookie quarterbacks, Gino, Bryce Young now expected to miss 1 to 2 weeks with an ankle injury in Carolina. He hasn't practiced all week. Frank Reich today mentioning a timetable for his return in his press conference. Andy Dalton starts in Seattle. Jake Luton will be backing up Andy Dalton. Let's hope Andy Dalton stays upright for the sake of quality football. And that's a stretch saying that Andy Dalton can deliver quality football at this stage of his career.
So we had some grainy footage from the Cincinnati practice field today, and it kind of cracks me up that they're the one team, if you wanted to watch, just drive slowly by in the overpass. Let's look. There he is. That's Joe Burrow out there. But talk about mixed signal there. Maybe Burrow was out there a little bit, but the Bengals signed some guy named Reed Sennett. He's the insurance plan here. Sennett spent time this training camp with the Bengals, also played with the Buccaneers, Dolphins, and Eagles, as well as the XFL San Antonio
Brahmas.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if Burrow can't go on Monday, it'll be Jake Browning starting against the Rams, and then you've got Sennett as like your emergency guy who's on the practice squad right now. But you make that signing today, and I think we've been hearing it all week. Burrow's not going to play this week. He's not going to play on Monday. We'll get final word of that tomorrow as they have one more day of practice before they give their final injury report and tee it up on Monday night against the Rams. All right, we take a break here and we return with happy hour and a round of shots and your phone calls. If you want to join us, pull up a stool on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, the new location at 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
Odyssey has sports for every fan.
And W239BF Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Buffalo Bills Friday injury report, a clean one, as good as it can be. Now, Tre'Davious White was given a Veterans Day arrest, but everyone else practiced, including tight end Dawson Knox. Head coach Sean McDermott on facing a new quarterback in Sam Howell.
Very impressed. Like you mentioned, smart, understands their system, makes plays both throwing the football and with his legs. He has really broken some defenses with his legs in critical third down situations or in the red zone as well. So he's done a fabulous job.
The developing story on this game, the weather. Tropical storm Ophelia due to hit the D.C. area 2 o'clock Sunday. Our coverage Sunday will begin at 9 a.m. Bills and Commanders here on the Fan Rochester. Wings finishing up the season. They're in Indy this weekend. Cubs up on the Rockies 6-0. They're in the ninth. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Happy Football Friday to you, my friend. Let's get it.
And it was an easy victory for the 49ers.
Bills Commanders, 1 o'clock Sunday live right here.
Buy or sell? The Eric Bieniemy effect.
Mike Danger.
I don't think it's going to be an easy task for Buffalo, but I think they have enough talent to get over. Bills win 24-21.
Gene Battaglia.
I think with Washington and Eric Bieniemy, they'll do some things on offense. Are we going to get good Josh, bad Josh, or somewhere in between? I don't think the Bills' offensive line all of a sudden solved everything. This is a big test against that team coming up.
Once I saw tropical cyclone, it got my attention.
What are they calling it? A tropical cyclone? I heard that was Gene's nickname in high school.
It was actually Mean Gene, but go on.
Oh, Mean Gene, the tropical cyclone.
You guys enjoy it when fantasy experts pretend to be lawyers or doctors. You're really going to enjoy it when we pretend to be meteorologists.
I am Count Hesco.
Certainly the best weekend thus far of the college football season.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, folks.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome into Happy Hour, and thanks for starting your sports weekend with us here in the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. If you're listening locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950, we appreciate that. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app or on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. And we've got our video stream up for you at The Fan Rochester. Find us on YouTube, also on Twitch. If you're watching along today, you can see that Gene Battaglia is sporting a Cubs jersey. It's a weird look for a Mets fan. I'll allow it today. The Cubs are winning. You're not a jinx just yet.
No, you inspired me because after you were like the voice critical of Boeheim in that program, and Mike Danger comes in a Syracuse orange sweatshirt. And I'm like, where did you get that? Like, I've never seen you in that. Sandy had to say it. You own that, and well, it was at the bottom of your closet, so I mentioned the bottom of my closet, and I've had this for 20 years, and same thing. Executive, why do you keep that? Well, somebody gave it to me, and look, it's not even real. It's so old.
What's the brand name on that?
Majestic.
I don't think they make apparel anymore. You don't hear anything about Majestic apparel anymyore.
Like, it's so replica.
That's
very replica.
Yeah, that's what's the material on that? That's straight up.
That's polyester.
Yeah, straight up polyester.
Yeah, it's itchy.
You're wearing a plastic jersey. But it's okay. It looks fine. The pinstripes are sharp. The logo hasn't changed. It's timeless. I would wear that if I went to Wrigley Field. And knowing that it's a 20-year-old jersey, I would wear it. I would still wear it proudly. I wouldn't care.
Yeah, that's look, and I don't think the Cubs are one of those teams that anybody can really have any hate unless you're a Cardinal fan.
Right?
They're lovable.
They are lovable losers. Yeah, and the reason why Sandy had never seen that sweatshirt on me is because Sandy's not around me when I'm wearing it outdoors doing yard work. I mean, she's never, she's nowhere near the vicinity of me when I'm outdoors. Maintaining everything outside when I'm wearing that sweatshirt.
Doesn't like to get her hands dirty.
No. Not her thing. Not her thing. I'll gladly take that over, and she can handle the indoor chores, the cleaning and whatnot. But so I found something at the bottom of my dresser. You whipped out something today from the back of your closet, and I was worried. I was worried that you're just dragging my team down the hole that the Mets are in right now. The Cubs have me a little bit concern, Gino. I mean, they're choking this away.
No,
but they're winning now. So
update date just went final.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Good. They beat the Rockies. You should beat the Rockies. If you want to be a postseason team, yes, beat the Rockies. Beat the Pirates. You lost to the Pirates last night. What's going on?
So you're a half game up on the Marlins, 1 game up on the Reds.
Yeah. The Marlins are the team that I'm worried about.
No offense. I think most of us would rather see the Reds in the postseason than the Cubs.
What?
For sure.
The Cubs draw a bigger audience, bigger name, bigger audience.
Yes, Chicago's a bigger market. Yes, that's a more. But I'm just saying, from a fun standpoint, the Reds are the fun team.
Here's something to think about. Just quick baseball take. If you're a San Francisco Giants fan and you kind of like looking like, what can we do to re-energize this fan base? Because you have high expectations.
Go after Shohei. Is that your take?
No. I think you can. And Gabe Kapler, I think, is a fine manager, but I think it wears thin. It wore thin in Philadelphia, and I feel like it might be wearing thin right now with the Giants. You see what David Ross has done with zero managerial experience and just a handful of veterans on one-year deals, and you've got your team in a position to make the postseason. If you're the Giants, go do the same thing with Buster Posey. Follow that template. Get Buster Posey to be your manager. And then you've got an energized fan base. You've got, people enthusiastic about your team that kind of underachieved with Gabe Kapler.
And go get Shohei.
And if you get Shohei, bonus. Bonus.
Yeah.
But what David Ross has done, and I know David Ross isn't everybody's cup of tea, but I just think a guy with no managerial experience, he was essentially a player manager when he was on that Cubs team that won the World Series.
Well, look, who was the guy that Giants had? Boshi for so many years. What position did he play? Catcher. You say catchers make the best managers because you see the field from a different angle. You know how to manage pitching. You know how to do all these different things.
You're a communicator.
That's it.
You're a good communicator. So there you go. There's my rare baseball take for you. Thanks for wearing the Cubs jersey, sporting the Cubs jersey.
That's the one and only time there.
Could fly the W today.
Bottom of the closet Friday here. Mm-hmm. Are we concerned about the weather on Sunday? Depends on how you define concern. It's an issue. There's no doubt about it. We're originally, this will be long past through. For whatever reason, this is slowing down. It's been upgraded to a tropical storm. So we're not talking hurricane. However, when it makes landfall here tomorrow morning in North Carolina, wind gusts can be up to 110 miles an hour. Now, that's going to weaken over the next 24 hours, but they're saying that it's going to hit boom, literally right over the top of the stadium. This path is practically by the time Sunday 2 o'clock comes around. So, couple things there. I'm just wondering if the NFL is thinking, maybe we push this back to 7 o'clock. And if not, I'm wondering if Sean McDermott is just having a powwow right now with all his coaches like, okay, we need a different plan here. Whatever we were thinking on Monday when we put this together, we better start doing something different right now.
Well, if he hasn't been having that conversation, then he hasn't learned anything from all of the adversity that this team has faced over the course of the last couple of seasons, having to reschedule games and move games and postpone games and cancel games. I can tell you that the NFL won't move they won't move their games unless there's a public health concern, right? A public health risk. And lightning would be the thing that I would say would maybe postpone the start of this game. If it's just torrential rain and wind, they'll play in that. They'll play in that because it'll look good on TV, and the fans and the players will be miserable, but they're not at risk. They're just at risk of getting wet. They're just at risk of getting windswept. I don't think that the NFL is going to make it a habit of canceling or postponing or moving kickoffs unless there's a public health risk, like we've seen them do in the preseason with thunderstorms in the area and lightning strikes and so on.
A definition of tropical storm, the consistent wind speed is 39 to 73 miles an hour.
Okay.
That would be tough to play in.
It would be a challenge.
Yeah.
It would be a challenge, but Craig Hoffman, who joined us last hour from the Team 980 in Washington, D.C., made a point that I think we forget. Like Josh Allen, right now in the NFL, may be the guy that you consider the best bad weather quarterback in the NFL. I mean, who was it before? We always say Aaron Rodgers playing in Green Bay. He always had success playing in Green Bay. Maybe he was that guy. Brett Favre was certainly that guy before Rodgers, obviously. would you say now that it's Allen? Is there anybody that even comes close to being a good bad weather quarterback?
Well, look, Allen has that win over the Ravens in the postseason, and I don't think he deserves the blame for that Patriot debacle a couple of years ago. But I would certainly take Allen in this matchup over Sam Howell. I think a lot of people were, and now we're all of a sudden like doing a research on Sam Howell. What is this? Well, you go back to his original scouting report, and guy has a strong arm. Of that draft class in 2022, he had the strongest arm, clocked at 59 miles an hour. Okay, that's a plus here. But when we talked in the 3 o'clock hour to Thor Nystrom, and you asked the question, Danger, bring us back. Why wasn't he regarded as one of the top quarterbacks? Reason was the drop-off senior year when some of the talent, like Michael Carter, left on that North Carolina team.
Javonte Williams was on that team.
Yeah.
He lost a lot of good players.
And when all of a sudden teams decided, you know what, we're only going to rush 3 or 4 and drop more, there wasn't anywhere for him to put the ball, or maybe he was processing slow, and he was taken off a lot of times. So if you're Sean McDermott, I think the game plan is, in fact, it makes it very simple here. You're not going too high safeties. Go ahead, throw the ball.
In the weather especially, yeah. You have to try more than ever now here to stop the run. And how will the Bills' offensive line fare against that Washington front? Here's Sean McDermott earlier on his Zoom call talking about the Bills' offensive line versus Washington.
Right. There's some new pieces in there, so it's really getting to know one another and getting to know the strengths of our unit there in terms of who does what and what do we do best as a unit. And then I've been impressed to this point. Obviously, another game this week that we've got a big challenge in front of us with that defensive line of Washington.
And if you go back and just kind of recap the week that was for the Buffalo Bills, I think the biggest story off the field was the retirement of Christian Kirksey. And you're going to have a challenge here for Terrell Bernard. We saw him make a big play against the Raiders, obviously with the interception. Can he continue to be a force in stopping the run? Sean McDermott giving a little evaluation on his second-year middle linebacker here through 2 games.
He's done a good job. He works extremely hard. It's important to him, I think, on two ends. Number one is it's important to him because he loves to play the game of football. Number two is he really respects his teammates and wants to earn their respect, and that's I think a pretty admirable hunger, if you will, from a young player that earning their respect, his teammates' respect, is important to him.
1 o'clock kickoff. As of right now, if what you're saying actually happens and there's some kind of threat with the weather to fans and to players,
I think it's just everybody's just got to pay attention on Sunday. And again, it's there's only 2 things that could make it push this back. One, public safety. State of Maryland has 2 games going on. All right, you know what? Just we have other emergencies with down power lines and whatever. Let's move these games back. Maybe they're having these contingency talks with the NFL. I haven't seen anything. I'm just kind of putting that out there. The other thing is lightning. Remember that Dolphin game we kind of had to wait out years ago? Okay, I don't know if that's going to bring anything in here, so we'll all be paying attention. The one Commander note here, Logan Thomas is out for this game, the tight end, so he did not make it through concussion protocol in time.
I have the Bills winning 24-21. There's a prediction I gave this morning in the break room on CMF. I have the Bills winning, not covering, and the weather, I think, does play a factor here. I think that, for a Washington team to score 3 touchdowns on McDermott's defense normally would be a stretch, but I think it's going to be a challenge. I think the weather is going to play a factor. It's going to make things a little bit tough, and the Bills have shown, in week 1, if they get physical, things get physical, the way the Jets push them around a little bit, that Washington's got a couple of good backs. They've got a few good wide receivers, and I think their offense, if you're able to confuse Sam Howell, great, but I think that Washington will be able to score with the weather being what it's looking like it's going to be. 24-21, my prediction. Gino, you altered when you saw the weather, and you said, what, 17-14?
17-13 for whatever it's worth. I do have the Bills winning this, but it's going to be the under. And I'm just trying to find out here where the smart money is kind of going here. And BetQL originally, I'm just looking at the money line here, where they had it, originally 5.5, just outright 5.5. It went up to 7. Now it's down to 6.5. So there's been some movement on the line, but no real movement on the over/under right now.
Yeah, Bills by a touchdown is what you're hoping for if you're taking the Bills minus 6.5. Peter, the Jets fan, tweeting us at the fan Rochester on X. Predicting Bills 23, Commanders 14, and because he's a Jets fan, he's throwing in Jets 17, Patriots 9. They break the streak. Did you say Patriots 9?
9 times.
I think the Patriots beat the Jets this weekend. They don't want to fall to 0-3.
The crazy thing, this stat is mind-blowing. Where were you in 2010? Did you have one daughter or two at that point?
I had 2.
You had 2.
I had a little one. She was 1 at the time.
Okay. The last time the Jets in the regular season beat the Patriots in regulation.
2010.
Isn't that crazy?
Yikes.
There was a few overtime. There was the playoffs, of course, with the Bart Scott game. But, that's ownership.
Yeah. Look, for the Patriots to go 0-3 feels unlikely. I like the Patriots in that game. Sorry, Peter. Ooh. Sorry. We'll see how that shakes out. And by the way, like if you're like me and you're looking at that line for Denver and Miami, it feels a little bit fishy. I'm not saying the Broncos are going to beat Miami, but would you be surprised if the Broncos upset Miami so that they avoid an 0-3 start as well?
You say it feels a little fishy. It's a lot fishy. It's inviting you. Oh my gosh! Have you seen the Dolphins' offense? I only have to cover the 6.5. They win by a touchdown. Yeah, no. Broncos a 1-point loss. Granted, it was the Raiders. Broncos should have gone to overtime, but again, you had the Hail Mary at the end. That's a team, and that's a head coach also that, mind you, probably wants to remind everybody, yeah, you could have had me. Mm. You think Mike McVape is staying up late trying to devise? You think he takes that into consideration?
I tell you, if we look ahead to week 4, that's problematic for the Bills. I think that speed, I know that there's the same speed they had to deal with last year, but I think that speed of Miami, they look faster this year if that's possible. Tua's more decisive. He's getting it out quick. He's a one-read quarterback. He gets rid of the ball fast. And those guys, Waddle it's ridiculous. Watching them last Sunday night was just eye-opening again, a reminder of just how much faster they appear than their opponent. You saw a little bit of that last night with the Niners as well. Not so much with the speed, but all of it. Like the speed, the power, the physicality of that Niners team on both sides of the ball. That's a tough thing for other teams to match up against.
Well, we talked to a lot of the experts here, Buffalo, and you're saying, okay, who's the biggest threat? It's Jets, it's Jets. And a lot of people from the outside saying that. I'm like, no. People have been saying close to it. It's Miami. And I think that, what can help their danger is the Bills' pass rush. Like, even though you don't have Von Miller, this seems like everybody is getting after it. So, yeah, all of a sudden the weather has me dialed into this Washington game. Funny how that is, because I was like you. I'm like, okay, you're going to go down, you're going to beat the Commanders. Oh, gosh. Can you imagine this is just going to be one of those fluke weather games, and then we're all going to be shrugging our shoulders like, I can't believe the Bills lost, but what are you going to do? It's possible.
We had Thor Nystrom on with us earlier. Thor's in Minnesota, Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros. He gave us not only his best bets for tomorrow's awesome college football schedule, he also shared Vikings perspective there. He likes the Chargers against his Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings could fall to 0-3, and the Chargers avoid that 0-3 start, but a lot of points in that game on Sunday in the early window. Just a great weekend of action ahead of us. We get our weekend of action started tonight. We go to the chosen spot.
Yes, Canandaigua football.
Jack
against East.
Jack, not his real name. Jack tweeting us at the fan Rochester, because we saw Jack last week at HFL for our Friday Night Rivals game of the week. He's going to be in Canandaigua as well tonight. Jack's just following us everywhere we go. Jack, we're going to have to get a restraining order. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
We appreciate you listening, Jack. We'll look forward to seeing you tonight. Beautiful facility there in Canandaigua and East, the opponent with a chip on their shoulder tonight. Going to be a great game.
Yeah, look, anybody that is like, wow, it's another nice Friday night here on our deck here. You you have Danger and I to thank, because ever since we started doing these high school games on a Friday night, every Friday night here in Rochester in September and the first 4 weeks in October has been spectacular.
What would you be doing on your Friday nights if you weren't calling Section 5 football in the fall?
I would be grilling and having just on the deck this
getting
time
some
of
yard
year,
work done, probably like before the weekend, maybe to clear the deck for weekend. You're still doing that during the day on Saturday or Sunday.
No, I would not be doing yard work on a Friday night. No. I think where a lot of us we go home, we're kind of fried on a Friday night, right?
Yeah.
So.
Some people will get the yard work, get a mow in on a Friday night.
I don't like that guy because we do have one guy in the neighborhood, like, okay, and you could picture the executive producer and I, with a box of wine sitting down, all of a sudden, like, oh, okay.
He's just getting a jump on his weekend, Gino. That's all he is doing. He's just making sure that, his Saturday and Sunday, the deck is cleared. He can do whatever he wants.
Not only that, he's the guy that power washes his house on a Friday night. Like, what are we doing? That's his equal annoying.
That's ambitious. I mean, power washing the house is a satisfying task, but to do it on a Friday night, ooh, that is some hot power washing talk here in the sports bar. How do you spend your Friday night? It's just power washing my house. Wow.
What I would be doing. You would be doing the same thing. You'd be cooking something on the egg and you'd be hanging out and whatever.
Yeah, I'm due to get something on that egg. Get some meats grilled. Is there a specific they're playing the Commanders, the Hogs, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll throw some pork on the egg just as a sacrificial offering for the Buffalo Bills this weekend. Yeah.
Hi.
All right.
We had Tony in Penfield who dropped off. Tony, I'm sorry. Call back.
Oh, Tony was on hold, and then he didn't. He got tired of listening to us ramble.
Yeah. I blame the producer on that.
Sorry, Tony. Hey, look, you're going to get through to us at 866-4326. You're not going to get a phone screener. You're going to get Gene. We don't have a producer.
Don't blow the cover.
I'm sorry. Look, this is truth in advertising, a peek behind the curtain. A lot of big shows have a producer who will screen their calls. Not us. Not here in the sports bar. We pride ourselves on doing it all ourselves. We do it all, including answer the phone in the middle of a live talk show. You'll never know.
Like, what other show does this?
No words. Let's get to a round of shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, let's talk about this delicious college football menu you have tomorrow, and we'll lay out how you can watch from noon to midnight and just have an enjoyable day of college football. Also, an idea by the two leftovers, and we're down to two of the Pac-12. Is this actually feasible? What Oregon State and Washington State and by proxy Boise State are actually floating here? No, I'm not talking about a merger or anything. We'll kind of discuss this. We got to follow up to this. You remember that story where Sal Capaccio was at the White Sox game?
Oh, somebody got shot.
Yeah, well, Chicago police have commented on this, and there have been some things that, normally
Was this the one where they snuck a gun in the rolls of somebody's fat? Is it the same story?
I don't know what that story is.
Oh, I think it was this story. I think they got through security, like a weapon got past security because they stashed it in one of their rolls.
Well, there's something disturbing out of this story. Like, if I was living in Chicago, I'd be like, ooh, okay. There's a retirement ceremony going on right now for a guy who spent a lot of time with the Red Wings this season. We'll set you up for baseball as well. And your guy Stephen A. not doing himself any favors last night at Yankee Stadium. Saw
this. We'll get into that and more if you want to join us. The Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line is open at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Last call coming up before 6 o'clock as well. Next, a round of shots in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester.
Odyssey has sports for
update.
Tre'Davious White given a Veterans Day arrest, but other than that, everyone practiced for the Buffalo Bills today, including tight end Dawson Knox. Head coach Sean McDermott certainly is going to be looking at the weather forecast.
Right, we've been watching that and monitoring it as I know the league is as well. Feel like there's a chance that we avoid some of the weather. But you know what? We're going to play the game, and we'll have to be ready for any of the conditions that are there on game day.
That storm has been upgraded to a tropical storm, Ophelia, due to hit the D.C. area at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Our coverage will begin at 9 a.m. Sunday here on the Fan. Rochester Bills and Commanders. Final weekend of the season for the Rochester Red Wings. Tonight, they're in Indianapolis. Cubs beat defeating the Rockies today 6-0. They now have a half-game lead for that final wildcard position. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Line them up. We're doing shots. Today's top sports stories in the sports bar. Time for another round of shots with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, Gino, let's clean up around here as we wrap up a sports week in the sports bar and get ready for all of the action coming up this weekend. Section 5 football tonight, college football tomorrow. We've got NFL football on Sunday.
If you had to pick one game tomorrow,
I'm intrigued by the whiteout. I'm not going to lie. I'm intrigued by the whiteout. That's become like a family thing. We'll pay attention to what Penn State does. But I as far as skin in the game, I've kind of got my skin in the game in a bunch of different things. I like what PJ said earlier about Oregon against Colorado.
Yep.
I like Oregon to go over their team total, and they'll probably win that game. I know we had Thor on with us earlier, and Thor knows his stuff. I understand what Thor is saying. His comments are valuable, but I'm going to ignore his advice.
Is it 14.5? Is that where you're going with this? Iowa? No,
I'm going Ohio State. Over Notre Dame.
I would too. Although Ohio State looked crappy against Indiana, it took them a while to put them away.
Yeah. Look, if you're gonna, I like what PJ said earlier this week as well. That if you're gonna upset Ohio State, usually the shoe is where that happens. They're good on the road, and I think they go into South Bend and take care of the Irish.
Well, you can easily have an enjoyable day starting at noon, and that's when the Orange kick off tomorrow. And if they're for real, they'll put away Army. Right now, the line is at 13 by the Orange, but of course, we can't bet on this one being in a New York State game. That's on the ACC network. The late afternoon window on television is great. You have 3 games that feature 2 ranked opponents. 2 of these 3 games are Pac-12 matchups. Number 19, Colorado, as you mentioned, and number 10, Oregon, 3:30 on ABC. And then you watch Chip Kelly and UCLA. They're ranked too, 22 at number 11, Utah. The Utes for real. That's on Fox at 3:30. CBS is a decent matchup too. Are we talking about the downfall of Alabama when we come back on Monday? They are home against number 15, Ole Miss. And at night, you got a good choice here. Penn State, ranked 7th, home to number 24, Iowa. The Nittany Lions are actually favored by 14.5. Iowa has some issues on offense. And it's a matchup between those 2 top 10 teams. Number 6, Ohio State, visiting number 9, Notre Dame. 7:30 tomorrow on NBC. Only the 8th meeting between those 2 schools. Last time the Fighting Irish beat the Buckeyes, you got to go back to 1936.
Who was at that game? Here we see Clark Gable enjoying some college football.
Take a guess. It was a really, really odd, low-scoring game. Odd score.
5-3.
7-2. Guarantee it won't be 7-2.
This game is not entertaining. Fans have been falling from the promenade.
There is one more matchup featuring 2 ranked opponents, and it's really, what do we call this one? The leftover matchup here?
Oh, yeah.
The last 2 teams in the Pac-12.
They're both ranked, though.
Right.
Pac-12's been good this year.
That's the irony here is that, can you imagine if you actually said, hey, networks, look at our product? Oh, yeah, too late. Oregon State, number 14. They're at number 21. Washington State. Looking at a future not being in a Power 5 conference, schools like Oregon State are floating this idea of relegation. Boise State Athletic Director Michael Walsh made a draft of how this could look. The Oregon State AD, his name is Scott Barnes, says he thinks this model is coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Why? Because all the other schools all of a sudden are going to feel like generous? Out of the kindness of their heart, they're going to do you a solid?
No, if you're not in, you're out.
That's right.
Yeah, we're not going to let you in.
So Boise State is the spearhead behind this?
Yes.
You're still Boise State. I mean, like Boise State was always that kind of like pesky Mountain West team that would show up at a bowl game and upset the big powerhouse.
Right, the Fiesta Bowl win over Oklahoma.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not what they are anymore. Boise State was playing North Dakota. Not North Dakota. They were playing North Dakota last weekend, Gene.
Yeah. So that's kind of like your UConns, your whoever is out here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like for Syracuse, you're just hoping that there's a seat at the table.
Stick around. Just stick around the ACC.
Yeah. Do you remember the story from a couple weeks ago? 2 women wounded by gunfire, Section 161, a guaranteed rate field. That's not good. That's the White Sox home. And what I remember about this game was that Sal Capaccio was at it. The Bills were in town to face the Bears the following day. Chicago police now admit they made a mistake. That game should have been halted. Thinking, if there was gunfire and you didn't know where it was coming from, police still can't determine whether the gunshots came from within the stadium or from the outside.
Welcome to Chicago. You don't know where the gunshots are coming from. You don't have to. I don't want to misspeak and I don't want to get my facts screwed up, but I want to say that this was the story where they got through security the weapon got by security because it was stashed in their rolls. The person who brought it in was so overweight that they were able to get the weapon through security by stashing it in their rolls of fat. Now, I thought I saw that somewhere. Maybe I'm getting my stories mixed up, and I say it all the time. It's a crazy world. Someone ought to sell tickets. I've never been to guaranteed rate field. I'm a Chicago guy. I've never been to a White Sox game.
But you've been to Soldier Field, right?
Yes.
Did you see this story? There was a burglary last night where things that were stolen, ride-along mowers, a John Deere Gator, amongst other things, they just ripped down the fence and drove right out. The estimated value of the theft is $100,000.
Ooh. I saw a kid on TikTok whose shtick is trying to get inside of stadiums when there's nobody in the stadiums.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen this?
This is actually like a common thing, yeah. And when you do, like, hey, I'm in Fenway Park and the lights are off.
Yeah. So you find a door that's somehow open or unlocked, and you kind of crawl around through the inner workings of the stadium until whoa, I'm in the concourse and I'm here all by myself, as if they don't have cameras watching your every move everywhere inside of these places. And eventually, security is going to find you, and they might even press charges because you're not really supposed to be there, right?
Can I confess something?
Go ahead. You did this before.
Sort of. So, and this isn't like when I was a kid.
Doing it at the downtown soccer stadium doesn't count.
The year's 2015. St. John Fisher football is opening up in Thomas More, which is in Kentucky. So we're standing in downtown Cincinnati, but we don't get in till late, right? So can't go to the Reds. Like you're in town, I'm going to go check out the game. Well, there's lightning. It's in a delay or whatever. And I'm like, with Norm Kiefer, a friend, and we're like, well, let's go over and check out the game. And we just kind of walk right up. And because it's in a rain delay at that point, there really wasn't anybody at the front.
So this is a Reds game?
I walk right in.
Walk right in a Reds game?
I walk right in. No, they never started the game, but I just kind of walk right in without a ticket. I'm like, wow, I just walked right in without a ticket. It can be done.
Sometimes if you just walk up like you own the place.
I own the place, yeah.
Sometimes you just walk up with a swagger and a confidence like you own the place. Nobody really questions it a lot of the times. I've done it too. Not to that degree. I've never gone into a professional sporting event without a ticket. But, different events might be happening and you just walk in like you own the place.
I walked in and I wasn't looking around or anything, just kind of straight ahead, just kind of like, not even like breaking stride or looking around. And then, and then we walked the next session over and then you look around like nobody's following us. We did it. Oh my gosh. We walked right in. This is post 9/11, mind you.
Yeah.
Red Wings. I've done that too. Sorry, Dan.
Oh, you've gone in. Well, we've got a different kind of relationship with them.
Right, yeah. One of the veterans that saw time with the Wings this summer was Sean Doolittle. His retirement press conference going on right now in D.C. Doolittle had an ERA of 5.91 this season. That's not good. So we knew it was time. He broke into the majors in 2011. The Wings tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, and that's it. All these games in Indianapolis.
I really wish AAA baseball would make it so the games I don't even know what are the rules now for minor league baseball. The second half, it's the first half you basically wipe clean, and the second half is all that matters. Gene, I mean, like we tried to keep up with this as it evolves and morphs into what it is right now.
It would have been, why not take this last week off, and you're just having a best of 3 of two teams, and you're have a real playoff.
Right.
What are we doing here? It's almost like, we don't really care about that. So
wins and losses don't matter.
No.
It's strictly for development, and that's all we care about. And, when you show up to the ballpark, you're going to be at the ballpark.
Have a
great
burger,
atmosphere.
yeah.
Have the food. Have some beer. You can't beat the atmosphere at the ballpark. But I do like it when you go to a game and your team is good and your team is competing for something beyond just the development of the individuals that are on the field.
It's been, for the Red Wings, though, it never comes into play, though. We've just been kind of okay.
I don't blame the Red Wings. I blame AAA baseball.
That's it. What are we playing for?
Yeah.
It used to be the Governor's Cup. I couldn't even tell you what it is now. Finally, the honor of throwing out the first pitch last night in the Yankee Stadium went to master takesman Stephen A. Smith. He bounced the pitch well short of home plate. In fact, it didn't even hit the dirt. It hit the grass in front of home plate.
No!
Stephen A. says he choked. Mike Danger, that is something we here at the Sports Bar would never do if we were ever asked to do it at a Wings game.
Well, now that the season is winding down and we just gave such a glowing recommendation of AAA baseball, a glowing endorsement for AAA baseball.
We will not be
It's never
asked,
happening. No, we're not getting any of those accolades. That we're not getting our names on the wall. We're not getting a bobblehead. We're not getting first pitch. We're not getting any of that stuff. We love the Red Wings. We love Mace. We love Will.
I think that should be our thing. Don't honor us.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
look,
no,
we just merely live in the shadow of actual great broadcasters. One who retired today or last day on the air, Terry Clifford. I don't know if Terry and all these other great broadcasters, Houseman a few years ago, if all these great broadcasters have been in the market for years and years and years and they retire, Weeze, I know, is at some point going to hang it up. Tommy, at some point.
No, he's never going to hang it up.
No.
Go on. Yeah.
Joe Capogreco, all of these great local broadcasters, maybe as they start to hang it up, maybe then, because of our longevity, people will be like, well, all we're really left with is those two idiots that talk sports every afternoon. Maybe then we'll get some recognition, but
No.
That still won't be enough.
No,
damn it! Just want a bobblehead, man. I'll feel legit if I can tell my kids, look, Dad's on a bobblehead. Keep that in your room.
I swear, the people who make the decisions for the Press Radio Club or whatever, they don't even know our show's on.
What is the Press Radio Club?
That's the one where they used to do the dinner all the time and here are the honorees, and everything. So
yeah, but what is it? What is the Press Radio Club? It's just a group of guys that
it's a group
are in the
of
press
guys
and in radio.
Way back when that used to be the case. Now that's very loose. Couldn't tell you there's anybody in press or in radio that is actually running said Press Radio Club.
So it might be defunct. We don't know if it's still a thing.
It's still a thing, but it's not anybody who's actually in the business of press or radio.
Oh, somebody's going to ask you or I to be on the board of the Press Radio Club. It's coming.
I don't think so.
You don't think that's happening? No. Oh, so that's our motto. Don't nominate us.
No.
Whatever you do.
Nope.
No accolades for us. Take your accolades and shove it. We don't want it.
Would you like to throw out the first one? No. This is the story that always sticks with me. Okay? At the Red Wings. And again, I love the Red Wings. And I'm out there, and this is the year before the pandemic, and they're with my family, and here, to throw out the first pitch from 98.9 the bus, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I didn't know that Scott and Sandy were going to do this, or Dem Jones, or something. Kaylee Beebe. Like, what?
That was our promotions director.
Kaylee, the promotions director, is throwing out the first pitch, and my family's laughing at me, my friends are laughing at me, like, oh, okay, and good for Kaylee, and then she got it over the plate and everything.
Good for her.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Kaylee, the promotions director, first pitch.
So you don't have any interest in throwing out the first pitch. If we get asked, your answer is no. If you get asked, the answer is yes. Let's be real. If you or I get asked to throw out the first pitch, the answer is yes.
It would be sarcastically, hey, you want to do it this weekend? Oh, the season's over. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
We have you come out early in the season when there's still snow on the ground. 5 people in the stands, all bundled up, wearing mittens. Yeah, that's the game that we're out there. All right, let's get the last call. You can join us at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Gino, let's get you off to the chosen spot. Gino and I, Friday night rivals on CW Rochester tonight as we head to Canandaigua, hosting East High in a Class A showdown tonight. You can watch the call on the CW Rochester Friday Night Rivals tonight. Gino's on his way, and we'll close up shop next here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's me.